actually have two agendas tonight. The first one is a matter that will be continued. It's for the Elm Place project. I see Mr. Drukas is here for that, and now being after 6 p.m., which was the time it was noticed. Mr. Drukas, so my understanding is we're going to continue to June 13th at 7 p.m. by Zoom. It will be the only item that we have on that agenda, and the purpose of the continuance is because we had many comments, including my own, that were received very late for town council to take a look at the proposed decision, and she requested some more time to review, and the petitioner has agreed to the continuance to that date, not extending the time for us to act, which immediately follows that. So everybody really needs to be on that Zoom call, all 5 of us, to vote on this decision, which I expect will be the final decision. There have been some progress made in, it looks like, reaching a resolution on the easement issues within the decision, for the parking and for the rail trail, but there's just some more that needs to be vetted out. So do I have that right, Chris? You're okay with continuing?
Yes, I just wondering, you've got a letter from us.
Yes.
Earlier, I just hope everybody's aware of the content of that letter. And, in our position, we really would hope that we've had enough back and forth, and that we've had the last go around with information coming forward and us having to respond to it, because what we're proposing to do is to provide a clean copy, taking into account as best we can the comments from Dan Hill, as well as your comments, creating a clean copy as well as a red line copy, in keeping with the content of the letter that we gave to you tonight, by Thursday, so that town council will have a chance to look at exactly what was acceptable, if you will, agreeable with us, and what issues with reference to how we responded to Dan Hill's comments. So moving forward, I don't see, we're hoping that we don't have to get in a position where we get another volley in return. So as long as we're at that point in our process, then I think we're fine.
Right, so I can tell you that since the time of the letter, I have heard back from town council. I've got a call scheduled with her on Thursday as well, and she understands that the date for our next hearing is June 13th. So I think we're on the same page there. I talked to Attorney Drukas earlier and suggested we agree that getting back from the petitioner a clean copy with accepted changes to things that aren't at issue for the petitioner, with suggestions that were made either by board members or by Dan Hill, and then showing which items they will not agree to for conditions, so that we can get town council's opinion on that, and then look to have a clean decision for review and vote on the 13th is my plan. So I am away for a fair amount of that period of time. So I'm just thinking, I've been the one that's been communicating on these issues. I'm wondering, I think perhaps Heather, if they're unable to reach me, if they could coordinate with you. They'll send it to all the board members, but I think we need somebody that is the point person. So if I'm not available, because I'm in a different time zone, 7 hours off, so I think that's what I'd look to do, that if there was an issue that needed the liaison from the board, I would say Heather would be the person for that. Okay? So
Doing that Zoom, Mark, as opposed to live?
it's going to be Zoom. It should be short, because we should have the decision all done, the easements done, the waivers done, and then it's just a matter of adopting the findings that are in that decision and having the formal vote on the decision, and it would get approved that night, assuming we don't have any conflict on any of these other issues. And it's my goal to take care of any conflict before we get to that point. And then it'll just get signed thereafter. But we'll have a roll call vote on that night for findings and conditions and waivers, right? Okay, so.
That's our understanding.
Okay, so I am going to make a motion to continue the petition to June 13th at 7 PM by Zoom. So I'm gonna do a roll call on that.
You want a second?
Yes, I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, do a roll call, so Brad, you're a yes?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Paula?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So we'll see you on June 13th by Zoom. Okay, thank you very much, I appreciate it. Okay, so the next matter on our agenda would be 2204, 93 Kensington Lane, David VALCOURT. Is Mr. VALCOURT here, or I see on the Zoom?
Hi, this is Susan Coley. I'm the architect for this project.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Should I share my screen?
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Just a moment. Okay. Hi, everyone. This is for 93 Kensington, representing David and Ashley VALCOURT. Is my camera? Oh, there we go. All right. So it's a 445 square foot half-story addition for finished attic at this house. The floor below is 900 square feet, so gross floor area for the finished interior on the third floor here is just under half of that. With also an additional roof deck in the back that's 148 square feet. This, let's see. The existing frontage on the house is 51.97 feet. All of the setbacks on the structure of the house are conforming. And the building height proposed is 26 feet, and I believe that is about 31 and a half feet from grade to the height here. So the design is essentially removing the roof from the attic up and reframing that entire roof, and of course it'd be a new floor framing, a larger size for the attic floor as well. Utilizing space below the eaves, below the 7'3" head height as well, and reutilizing the existing stair, and then proposing a roof deck in the back here. Any questions or additional information that I should add?
So all of the changes, would you consider them all conforming changes?
Yes.
So because you have an undersized lot, and you're short on frontage, and you have, actually, all your setbacks are okay, right? Your front, side, and rear.
Correct.
So it's frontage and lot area, and we have a conforming change.
I would just like to add too that I've spoken to all of the abutting neighbors as well as my abutters, and everybody is okay with the proposed changes as well.
Okay, well, thank you.
I just have a question regarding the square footage calculations. I just went, because I wasn't sure how you arrived at those. I was just looking at the floor plans,
Yeah.
which are on A003. No, wait a minute, I'm sorry, that's the existing. A100, I think it was. And I'm not sure if I added it correctly, but I just added up the numbers for level 1. This is on proposed floor plans, and I came up with 781 square feet. Just adding up the mudroom, the bath, the living room, and the kitchen dining. And I did the same thing with the level 2. And came up with 779 square feet. Adding up those numbers.
I could have been incorrect about the, so if I was grabbing the gross floor to the outside of the wall. And so on the first floor, I think this front area is not showing in the square footage. I think some of the closet space and chase area. And it's possible that the stair might not be included or showing as a square footage number within inside the room.
That was not showing?
Correct. I don't have all of the interior square footage numbers listed, but grabbing the exterior wall location around the first floor footprint was giving me 930 square feet on the first floor, and then grabbing the exterior wall on the outside of the second floor was giving me 900 square feet.
Well, okay, and then when I added up the third level, I came up with 491 square feet. So I had the attic at 491 square feet.
And
And the second level, it's 779, so it was more than, 50% of the second level. So it looks like, according to my calculations, that the third level does not qualify as a half-story, full story.
Correct, according to those calculations, and I apologize that I didn't clean up these numbers on here. So the dotted line, it could be, I use Revit as a software. The dotted line here represents the line where the 7'3" kind of roof, your ceiling change or the roof kind of cuts into the ceiling in the room. I think in Revit, it's grabbing it to like 5 feet. So the interior square footages that you see listed here, it's kind of a software graphic thing, but they're calculating the area as if it's like a 5-foot datum for the square footage, as opposed to where you are at 7'3". That's something I think, I realize that that's not.
So we can't rely on those numbers?
These numbers are giving you the areas inside the rooms that are probably at 5 feet, because the software automatically gives you the square footage, and I just kind of wasn't thinking about altering it.
We could make a
and my calculations are based on kind of cutting the floor plan at 7'3" instead, and then I created the calculations at that plane.
We could make a finding in a condition that it meet that we're not giving relief to vary that requirement, that it be 50%, no more than 50% of the floor below.
I suppose, but how's that how and who's gonna make that
The
determination?
building inspector would have to, if the relief said that we grant relief conditioned upon the actual square footage that is under the 7 or above 7'3", being no more than 50% of the gross floor area of the floor below, and no relief is granted for that. So they have to be certain, in order to get their building permit, that they are no larger than that. It has to.
Yes, the condition should probably include that the building inspector make that determination.
Yeah. So what we were saying, Susan, is we could have a condition if ultimately the board were to vote for the relief that's requested, and I think the relief that you need actually is just a finding under the Bellotta case, and it's a 48 section 6, because you're not increasing any of the nonconformities, but that the top floor meet the half-story definition and be no more than 50% of the floor below for the area that is defined for as gross floor area on a half-story. So
I think
that you would need to have updated plans that go to the building inspector that show the actual gross floor area of the second floor and the third floor, and it needs to be less than 50%.
Okay, I think that makes perfect sense, and I'm thinking moving forward graphically to show this, you know, better so it's clear. It's one of those,
Yeah.
One of those things that I was hoping that dotted line would be helpful, but it completely makes sense that these areas are showing something different at a lower head height, so.
Right, because not all of it counts,
Yeah,
but it can be confusing to us. So does anyone on the board have any questions about the petition? Hearing none. Is there anyone first present that wanted to be heard about this petition? Yes, can I have your name and address, please?
I'm a neighbor of Dave's. I'm Joanne Lorenz. I live next door, 99 Kensington LN. So when you are giving this reprieve to the size of it, is this after it's built that the building inspector looks at it, or he's looking at the plan, the plans will be done and then
The plan's gonna stay the same, but the measurements that are on the plans, what they did on this plan is they included 100% of the area on the half-story at the top, but it doesn't all count as gross floor area for our definition of a half-story. It's only areas that have a height exceeding 7'3". So none of the other areas count for that 50% calculation. So we would put a condition that it has to be, if the board were to vote in favor of the relief, that there needs to be a submission to the building inspector that shows that it's in fact meets that requirement. And we're not giving any, we wouldn't give any relief to exceed that requirement. So it would have to be less than 50% of the gross floor area of the floor below.
and that's done before construction starts.
It would be, to get a building permit, our decision's gonna say they have to show that. Do you have any other questions about the project?
I'm a neighbor who's not happy about it, but
Well, this is your opportunity to tell us why, or,
I just, they're very good neighbors, so I don't really have anything else to say. I just hate to, I just feel closed in.
The footprint of the structure itself
I know, it's
isn't
all-
changing, it's all interior, and then that roof deck and the bump outs out front. Is there anyone else that wanted to be heard about this petition that's either present here or on Zoom? If you're in Zoom, please use the raise your hand feature. Marissa, anybody?
Nobody on Zoom, nope.
Okay. Any discussion amongst the board before I close the public hearing and constitute the board? Okay, so on this one, I was going to constitute the board as everyone except for Paula. And I'm going to make a motion to close the public hearing. Have a second on that?
Second it?
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone want to make a motion? So first, before we get to a motion, my opinion is this is another one of those Bellotta cases, which is conforming changes to the non-conforming structure. And I believe all we need to do is to make a finding of no substantial detriment to the neighborhood. I think that's the only relief that's needed on this one. If that was a finding the board could make. So I think it's a 48, section 6, finding of no substantial detriment to the neighborhood.
So it doesn't need the additional findings under 2270?
I don't, no, that's what we heard on that Bellotta case. I actually have a copy with me, so I had it. And,
I thought that just said you didn't also need the variance in addition to a special permit.
no, I think it's just that you need a finding. So, ordinarily, an extension or structural change to a pre-existing non-conforming structure or use must comply with the applicable municipal bylaw. Under the second except clause of statute governing modification of non-conforming structures, creating explicit protections for one and two family residential structures and allowing increases in the non-conforming nature of such structures. Upon finding of no substantial detriment to neighborhood, permit granting authority must make an initial determination whether the proposed alteration of or addition to a non-conforming structure would increase the non-conforming nature of said structure. So it's not increasing the non-conforming nature because all the changes are conforming.
I think we had, this came up not too long ago.
Yeah.
And we had, didn't we have a memo from
We
town
did,
council? on
town
this?
council on Bellotta, and I've got the case right here, I had it from that. If permitting authority determines that proposed alteration or addition would intensify the existing nonconformities or result in additional ones, authority must consider additional question of whether proposed modification would be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. So it's very subtle. I really don't understand 100% what the difference is for the finding of substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood versus no substantial detriment to the neighborhood. I guess it's the more language. So, I think it's just it's a very, very low threshold of no substantial detriment. It's just a finding. And in fact, the Bellotta case was adding a dormer, which would increase the pre-existing non-conforming floor area ratio. So in that case, they were already non-compliant for the floor area. And they needed relief for the ratios.
I mean, we could make both findings.
We can, that's belt and suspenders. So, anyone interested in making a motion on this one? I'll give my copy of Bellotta. I thought you were the second accept guy, and you got, is that Borkland?
I have
you there?
Bellotta.
You have Bellotta.
I do have Bellotta, I'm looking at it.
The other case was Borkland.
Which one?
Borkland was the
Borkland.
other one.
Oh, yeah, there's a whole bunch.
You read all these cases, I remember.
Oh, yeah, many
studied it up.
Many times.
But it wasn't until we got that town council memo, which I have.
So you think it's just a finding of no substantial detriment, and we don't have to make the special permit findings, even though the bylaw?
We can make them both for belts and suspenders, but I think it's just a finding. And that's what we've been doing on these the past several months after we got that memo, was just making a finding or conforming changes to a non-conforming structure or lot.
All right, so I'll make a motion to approve the petition
22-4.
of David and Ashley VALCOURT, petition 22-04, to add a half-story addition to a two-story structure at 93 Kensington Lane. With a specific condition that the building inspector determine that the proposed attic addition, or third-story addition, conform to the requirements of the to the bylaw's definition of a half-story.
And maybe should we just specific, a finding of no substantial detriment to neighborhood,
Yeah, in accordance with
48-6,
48,
Bellotta.
with the Bellotta decision.
Okay, is there a second on that motion?
Bellotta, actually.
I'll second.
Bellotta, yeah, there is another L. Okay, I'm gonna do a roll call. So Dan, you're a yes?
Yes?
Brad?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay, so you have your relief. Mr. Doherty will write the decision, he'll file it with the town clerk. You'll find out when it's been filed, and then you'll have to pick up a certified copy and record it, and then you can provide your plans to the building inspector showing the 50% issue is met, and then you'll be able to get a building permit, assuming there's no appeal. Okay?
Thank you
Great.
so
Thank
much.
you very much.
All right, good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next matter that we have is 2205 for VINNIN Liquors. You here on that one, Ken?
I am indeed.
Okay, good evening.
I'm here, and my client is here virtually.
I see she's here.
Well, she's here on your screen, and I guess she's here in spirit.
Mark, I'm out on
Okay.
a letter.
Yep.
I'm here on seeking a special permit for the signage. I'm not sure what you've had an opportunity to look at in terms of the earlier submissions which were given to the listeners. Hopefully they would have included a picture of the proposed signage to replace the existing damage.
Thank you very much. We had previously appeared before the planning board on the 9th of May. And the planning board opines with regard to the issue of the signage and the awning. At the time that the submission was made, it was done by way of two separate options. Option one, which we are not going forward with today, but option one, for the purpose of giving the board some explanation and giving some an opportunity to understand the significance of the letter dated May the 10th from Mr. Polito, was that the awning was going to be made of a somewhat metallic material. It was the determination of the planning board that they felt that that was outside of the scope of an awning. The reason for that, but we're not going forward, was it would just give it more support. It would strengthen the awning because this has been probably the third or fourth, maybe more, iteration of these awnings because they just take a beating and they have to be periodically replaced. Currently, the awning that is there is a Sombrella material. It is black in color. It has been damaged. I have pictures if you wanted to see what the damaged awning looks like. And the request would be to replace that awning with a awning similarly made of a Sombrella material fabric. It would be a cocoa dark brown in color. It would not be metallic, but it would also provide for some signage on the bottom valance. And there are pictures of what that looks like that were submitted. I think you can see them. Oh, you have them on your screen. I'm looking at this screen. I would also indicate that prior to the awning that's currently there, there was a former awning that did have signage on the exterior of the valance. So we're going back to that version. Technically, I guess we would not need the approval of the board if it was like-for-like awnings. But insofar as there's going to be something on the valance, which provides some information, with regard to what's being sold, and in as much as that is consistent with the prior iteration prior to this black one, it was the feeling of the planning board, as well as under their criteria, that the exterior signage met the requirements under a B3 district. And for those reasons, we'd ask the board to approve the signage as provided to the board.
So what's the material now?
It's going to be Sombrella. It's not going to be.
No metal?
I'm sorry.
No metal?
No. There's metal underneath that supports it.
But the awning itself is not
This-
metal?
No.
And is the one you're showing us on the screen, is that the one that the planning board said is? They were thinking?
Actually, there's one, if it says, without my glasses and without being up close, there was option 1 and option 2. So you're going with, and the only difference between those two options, and it's very hard to determine, is that option 1 had a metallic top of the same color, it would
Yep.
match. Option 2, which is the one that we're asking the board to vote on, is entirely made of the Sombrella material, which is the canvas material,
So with the lettering that's on the awning,
on the valance.
on the,
That is hang down.
does that, do you need any zoning relief for that? for the-
Well, according to the planning board, and when the application was submitted, there was an initial determination by the then building inspector, I believe, I'm not sure under whose guidance, they suggested that we appear before you, and that's why we're here tonight. And similarly, the planning board ultimately felt that that was the avenue that we had to follow. So if the board thinks,
I don't need any more.
It's 6 inches for the valance, or for the lettering, and 10 for the valance.
Okay,
So awning, lettering, and signage shall be on a valance only and a maximum of 6 inches in height. The valance on an awning shall not exceed 10 inches in height.
okay.
and the planning board actually went through that, and in their response, it said, it is the opinion of the planning board that the proposed lettering combined with the existing illuminated sign on the building would be within the allowable maximum area of exterior signage of this building in the B3 district. So they made a finding that it does.
Where is the illuminated, sorry, I missed that.
I think above that, it's not even part of the dialogue tonight, but there is above that an existing
That's the existing,
sign. It has nothing to do with the awning.
no, next page. There's Jeff right there, see where liquors.
Yeah, but this, so, Ken, if I'm looking at this,
Okay, let me see if I can, maybe I can help you out a little. It's, I believe, and Ms. Ansara can probably better, this is the damaged sign, and this is the, above it where it says the word liquors. That's already there, that's not being touched, that had been previously permitted. The earlier version, you'll see, had some design on it, that's the one with the red. That's the one that got replaced with the black version.
Got it.
And now we're putting some lettering on the valance.
It's not an accurate description. It's not an accurate description.
it's desired.
It's not an accurate depiction, it's inconsistent. Based on the sign. See, it either was metal panel or it's canvas, it's the same awning.
No, this is just pulled from the building. I think it was just from the
Oh.
designer to give the client. This is what that one was.
No, it's okay. Not that I care.
It's kind of the same as like showing these.
So the lettering's not on the awning?
No, it's only on the down-hanging valance.
Okay.
And with the existing signage that's on the building, there's nothing that triggers needing any other relief?
Not according to the planning board, and I don't see, I didn't, and I wasn't aware of it. And I know when the applicant went in to speak with the building inspector, the determination was that the only relief that was needed was because of the of the lettering on the valance.
Yeah, it's only where the lettering is on the awning does it start to count toward the, maximum area square footage. So the actual, it will look like, it'll have the yellow liquors on the brick?
Actually, it's, what's currently on the brick remains. On the awning, it will be black umbrella, which are dark brown, and on the valance is the lettering that you see depicted on option 2 on the screen. And that's the criteria that we were required to meet in order to get the relief that we're seeking.
Okay.
Any lettering or graphics on an awning shall be counted toward, but that's, you're saying because it's the valance,
No, it's not even on the awning. It's
on the valance.
well, there's lettering on the valance, and then there is the big liquor sign, which is not on the awning or the valance.
Correct.
So in 6.2.2.6, where it says, any lettering or graphics on an awning, it's not, it's on the valance, shall be counted toward, so it doesn't say valance there. The valance on an awning shall not exceed 10 inches in height, awning lettering, and signage shall be on a valance.
It's to keep people dry when they walk outside.
Does the current signage meet the bylaw requirements?
The building was built in 1974. I can't speak to whether there was even a bylaw provision.
Right, but it
because
would be protected, I understand it's protected.
No,
But-
when installing, sorry, it says, in the event that you are replacing an awning, then all of the signage has to be updated to comply with the bylaw.
I only could read that to mean on the awning itself.
No, it says, when installing awnings, both signs and awnings shall be updated to comply with current signage bylaw
But
requirements.
I don't know if that is, he's replacing,
Right.
a destroyed, I think he's got the protection for an awning and the signage for what's there. So let's say he didn't have any awning on this
But
building.
it says, Mark, with regard to all existing awnings, a replacement of an awning or
Oh,
any
it does
change
on
or
the
alteration
front
of lettering or graphics on an awning shall be considered a new awning and subject to the restrictions
Yeah.
set forth.
Yeah, I agree then, yeah.
So Ken, did you happen to look at that to see whether or not the existing liquors sign complies with the current bylaw requirement?
I only dealt specifically with the issue of the awning, not with any other signage on the exterior of the building.
I suppose we could make that a condition.
So, but the,
There had obviously earlier been
Change that sign out,
signage.
to replace it, we want them to replace the broken
Oh,
awning.
of course.
right, but the question is if he's expanding the signage that he has.
Well,
Yeah.
earlier there had been signage. The latest version, when it came down, they didn't. Now they're putting some signage back up on the valance, which is no larger than, nor requiring more square footage than the earlier red version that you have, which gave you some sort of background historically of the, sort of the history here of this.
If I may, the red awning was there. When we went to go replace it, that black fabric was a temporary fabric. It was not supposed to be there for 5 years. And now that it's been damaged so many times, we are now looking to just have the same square footage of the awning, and the only difference is adding the print to the valance. Which, in theory, if I had the logos and back to the red awning again, that was something that was approved,
Yeah, the
5 years
logos were,
ago.
you could argue that the logos on the prior red awning were, in terms of size, were the same as the lettering that's proposed here.
Or greater.
At the square footage of the lettering is substantially the same, and therefore it's just a replacement in terms of the amount of signage. So we wouldn't be permitting any, we wouldn't be authorizing an increase in the dimensional signage. We're making a finding that it appears to meet. I like it a lot better. I'd rather have this signage go up than what was there with the red. I think it looks much cleaner and nicer.
Yeah, I mean, I have no issue with how it looks, or, you know,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to follow what our bylaw says.
Yeah. So, but I think it's a comparison of, I think you can include the logo as signage, you know, the grape leaves.
But that's not there, right?
That was there.
It was there, they have.
That was there, then they would temporarily replaced it with the black.
So they could argue they still kept the sign and it's not abandoned.
Right type of sign, do it internally illuminated.
Yeah, that's what I was looking
What's
for.
the size of the building, 3,500 square?
We don't have,
I was just trying to find the size of the sign.
But just let's find
I don't
out-
think we have
let's
that.
just find out what size, what's allowed, and then I'll.
anyone else on the board have any questions? Any comments? While you're looking at that, Brad, I'm just gonna see if anybody else had questions
Sure,
in the
yeah.
public. Is there anyone that wanted to ask any questions or have any comments about this petition? Anyone who's here, please raise your hand. Anyone that's on Zoom, please use the raise your hand feature. Hearing none. Okay.
This is in B3,
Yep.
so there's lots about B1 and B2. Here we go. Okay. No sign for any permission shall have a display area greater than 60 square feet in size, provided, however, permitted commercial uses having an area of more than 10,000 gross square feet.
How many gross square feet is the building?
I will ask Ms. Ansara, do we know how many square feet the building is?
It's about 8,300.
Okay,
It's definitely under 10,000.
So they got 60 square feet.
yeah. Do you know the size of the existing sign?
The exact dimensions of the sign, are you referring now to the one that says liquors?
Yeah.
I do not have the dimensions of that.
Well, it doesn't exceed 4 feet in height. I'm looking at
Well, I can't imagine it's over 4 feet.
3.2.4.2.
How many did they get, 40 or 60?
60,
Yeah, I mean, this is like 23, 25, and that's
it's greater than 10 to get the 120, so.
2, 25, 20, 30 inches.
So it'd have to be
It's
2
really
by
a photo.
30, yeah.
Sixty square feet for that against the building.
Right. So as long as that's 60 square feet or less.
Probably pretty close,
Mm.
because it's probably 4 feet tall and 5 feet tall.
Those letters are not,
I don't think that
And,
that's,
oh, they're not that big?
no.
It's gotta be
They're
under
certainly-
60.
They're certainly 2 feet tall.
yeah, I would say 2 by, if they're 30 feet wide,
It's a photo.
right?
I don't think they're that wide.
Right, so that's how they would,
Yeah,
so I think they're probably within that 60 feet. Yeah. So that's 3.2.4.2. I just just want to read that one more time,
When there are letters
Oh,
on the
wait a
building,
minute,
do
we
you
can figure
calculate
this
the
out.
area behind the letters?
Okay, so this is 34 feet, 6 inches. No, this is 28 inches
Yeah, it's less than
long.
30 feet.
28 inches, 28 feet long. It's 28 feet long, this right here,
Right.
okay?
28
So
times
it's,
2.
but it's also probably another foot there, so it's like 27. And the height of this line is 42 inches. So this is 42 inches on a plane.
Right, I was looking at the section in the wrong district. You got me to the right, the B3. It's a little more liberal.
3.2.4.2.
Yeah.
No, no,
Yeah,
3.2.2.6, I think.
Not 3.2.4.
No, it is, sorry, 3.2.4.2
Yep,
is B3.
It's more than
Yep.
60.
and this is B3, right?
Well, look,
Yes, it is.
yeah.
This is the, is this picture, this is a photograph, right?
I can't see it from this.
I think it
Is
is.
Sarah, if you could, can
That's a
she see what
photograph.
you're pointing at, and she could probably
I
better?
can't see what you're pointing at.
So,
Photo.
if we look at the last page of the petition, it's the purple
Yep.
awning?
It's
Yes.
on the screen now.
Yes. So where the white, on the bottom right, yeah, right there, that one. Is that a photograph?
That is a photograph.
Okay.
Okay, that's the answer.
Okay, let me look at the awning again.
Brad, do you want me to bring up a Google map,
These are.
street view? Would that produce a clearer image of the sign?
I think that sign is probably pretty
42
accurate
inches times.
with the red sign. I mean, the lettering.
The red sign would, I mean, if those letters are as tall as the awning, and they look to be about the same,
Yeah, they look about the same.
the awning is 42 inches. So if you took 42 inches by 28 feet, the question is whether or not that
That might be
area is less than 60 square feet.
42 divided by 12 times like 27 about. I got 95.
So it would seem like the existing sign, if, now, maybe this isn't a replacement of the awning, maybe this is a repair of the awning.
Yeah.
Is there a distinction there that we'd be comfortable making?
Mr. Croft, you're much more creative than I am, and I think that's probably an excellent suggestion.
Yeah, but the issue,
We are repairing it.
Fine looking at it as a
We're,
repair.
the existing frame, you bring up an excellent point. The existing frame doesn't change, it's just the material that's going over the frame, which is the metal
frame's
tubing.
Totally different, because
Is
it's
being
curved.
replaced, so we're
It's a totally
just,
different frame.
we're replacing the material.
I think the frame changes.
They don't-
So the awning, how important are the letters on the valance?
Well, we realized that it was preferable when we had them, and then temporarily we didn't, because we needed to put something up there that lasted longer than the short period of time, and turned out it was closer to 5 years, but, so we would like to put the lettering on the awning, if at all possible. I mean, that was the whole purpose.
so why don't you,
There's two ways of doing it. One's to give them the relief for what they're looking for. The other is to condition it that it's got to meet the definition, not giving any relief above the total signage that's provided.
Well, I don't know if we even have discretion on granting, it doesn't suggest here that we would have the discretion to grant relief that doesn't comport with the requirement.
Right, but but we wouldn't be approving the specific lettering on the plan. We would say, we'll approve so much lettering. Again, leaving it to the building inspector to enforce that it's less than 60 square feet in total for signage.
Well, the building inspector originally reviewed this, felt it comported, as did the planning board. I don't know, and I'm not suggesting they were right or wrong, but it led us to the path to believe that the only relief we were seeking was a replacement or a repair of an existing awning that was damaged, and we were adding lettering, and the lettering comported with the
Yeah, no,
requirements.
he did the right thing setting it here, but I think the question is whether or not
Yeah,
the board feels that we have the jurisdiction to give more than 60 square feet
I mean, it specifically says, when installing awnings, both signs and awnings shall be updated to comply with current signage bylaw requirements. And if the current bylaw signage requirements restrict the size of that sign to 60 square feet, and what this is 90, then it doesn't comply with the current.
No, I understand the
Right.
premise, and it's not, it's just, it would be a situation that would theoretically require, if you're replacing an awning, and you happen to have pre-existing grandfathered signage, that you'd have to tear the signage down to now
30 and 30.
narrow it down to 60 feet.
But you're not just replacing an awning. I
Well,
mean, you are putting a new sign around the awning. I mean, this is,
Yeah,
right? And so I do think that if it was just replacing the awning, I mean, in a repair, that I think I could understand. I could see how you would be able to make a grandfathering argument. I
But
don't,
what about the grapes,
yeah.
the logo? I think that they're entitled to count that as what they have for
They have one
There.
sign
Yeah.
on each of them.
protected use.
but that's not what they currently
So
have.
we have a.
They
slight-
don't, but so the question is whether they abandoned that relief. Did they go 2 years and abandon what was
The
previously
pre-existing.
a pre-existing protected use, either by permit or it predated zoning? And if we said, we'll give you exactly as much square footage as on the liquors, VINNIN, and the 3 grape logos, however many square feet that is, that's what you can have on the new sign, you're replacing it. I mean, that's what I would want to do.
You know, the other interesting
'Cause
thing,
I don't think they've abandoned it. I think that they've,
There's definitely the option, when you have a corner, when you have the end, to have 60 square feet on each side, and they have nothing on the other side.
I think
At the beginning of at 3.2.4.2,
yeah,
it says, where the
Lighting
front
is-
and side of the premises containing permitted use are comprised of exterior walls of the building may have one sign on each of the front and sides of the building. No sign, no single sign, basically doesn't say single, but singular sign can exceed the 60 square feet. But they can have a sign on each side.
So, not to get,
it's a good point.
do you think that, what's the policy then? I know it's not our purview to ask why, but just to help, is it that we don't want
300, she's got a mezzanine.
so much signage displayed in one eye shot, and that therefore, if we have signage here on this side with the grapes, they could do a sign on the awning on the other side?
If we, based on Heather's point, if we gave the relief that I was suggesting, that, okay, well, whatever they have, they can do it on this side. They could, as of right, put signage on the other side, side facing towards Lynn, towards Whole Foods,
Yeah.
because they're permitted to have it on that side.
Or do I have to wait till the public comment, because they can give you an avenue to finish this?
Well, I already asked for public comment, so you're welcome to.
Okay, so I believe she has 8,300 square feet, plus she also has a mezzanine, so I would say that that building's over 10,000 square feet. And if it's over 10,000.
Where do you, she's 8,300 square feet, where,
It's 8,300, so
retail
it's a gross
space.
floor area,
yeah,
plus the she's got a mezzanine
Yeah.
floor as well. So that mezzanine's more square.
Puts her over
footage, puts her over
10,000.
10,000, gives her a 120 square foot sign
right, good point.
On each side.
on each side.
I think I have to put you all on the payroll here, because you're.
What is the mezzanine, I'm sorry? The
She got
sale
another
floor?
floor.
Oh, gotcha,
Second floor.
great, okay.
Yeah, right, I remember from when they were looking to do an addition before.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
Been on the
so
board a
that's
long
good.
time. Right.
And then this sign, if it's, what did we say was the
It's
square
about
foot?
93,
About 90.
Yes, it's well under 120.
well under 120, and this isn't gonna add it. And then
Right.
the second side is a whole new start of 120.
Great.
Right,
okay.
right, they are over 10,000, make the finding that,
But you could argue that I'm gonna give you this, let me say it, but.
As long as
you
it
put the second
complies.
sign up.
yeah, condition on there being no second sign
On the right side of the building?
Or they
What do you
can-
think
or
of
they
that
can
if we
put
give
the
you the
second
relief?
sign up, But they both have to.
Mr. Tsara, what they're discussing, and I'm not sure you're capable of hearing all of the discussion, is that they want to have a condition that we not use the other side for additional signage that we just did with the proposal. And candidly, that's what's before you now, nothing else. And I would imagine if we required anything else, we would have to come back before you
Well, we're
again.
gonna make that
And
part of our
obviously, at that point,
decision.
you would look at it anew, and we could then determine whether, and
No, I'm looking to make things look better, and I have no interest in putting a sign on the other side at all.
Okay, all right, so can I close?
It's within her right,
I wouldn't either.
I don't see why we would restrict.
I wouldn't have a problem with that. I mean, I don't want
One
it.
more thing,
Well,
if I
we would just
may.
make her come back here if she,
yes, Ms. Ansara?
for additional.
One
signage.
more thing, if I may.
But then
The
you'd have to
structure
come
of this
down
awning
so
is
that
not
you
going to change. They're simply gonna repair the corner, and it already supports the balance. So it's nothing like they're gonna take this whole awning off and put a new structure on it. It's actually gonna remain the same, because the structure underneath already supports the balance. So now I'm just asking for the print on the balance.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, so I'm gonna make a motion to close the public hearing. Do I have a second on that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, so anyone interested in making a motion? I think Ken would probably offer.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
So this is petition 2205. I'll move to approve it for a special permit for the sign as indicated in the submission on option 2. It's indicated?
Yes.
And is this part of our, is option 2 part of the record?
Option 2 is part of the, well, we can make sure it's part of our decision, be attached
Yeah,
to the decision.
okay. And make a finding, I guess, that it complies with the existing exterior sign bylaws in the B3 district. And where do we come out on restricting their, to the extent that the petitioner seeks to have an additional sign on the,
Or anywhere in the building, come back.
yeah, anywhere on the building, they would be required to come back and seek relief.
Okay. I think that's implicit, but sure, I have no problem with that.
Okay, all right, so,
Mr. Kraut, could I ask you what section that you ultimately decided that this
It's 3.2.
2.4.2.
3.2.4.2, okay.
Ken, you offering to write a draft decision?
If I can remember all the insight that you've given me, I'll do my best.
Well, the 120 square feet, was that in that?
That's because it's, we're making a finding that the
That's
building
okay
is
with
over
that.
10,000 square feet.
Right.
I'll take
That's
care of
that
it.
section?
Yep,
Okay.
okay, so, I'm gonna second that motion. Brad, you're a yes?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Paula? And I'm a yes. So you have your relief, good luck.
Which one of the members did not
Andy recused himself
Okay,
from
okay,
the petition as an abutter.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, thank you. Okay, so the next matter I have is 2206, 80 Middlesex Ave. Is anyone here on that petition?
Yes, I am.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how you doing?
Good. Could you?
So we have replaced the front masonry stoop with a wooden deck. And we are looking to put a roof over that structure.
So what I was trying to figure out on this is to understand what was pre-existing there on the street, where it says stoop on the plan, and it was 9 feet 6 inches. Is that all pre-existing?
9'6" is, for some reason, that's a bad copy of what the stoop looks like, but the 9'6" is from the property line to the front of the deck.
Right, so you come out the front door, there's a porch there, and then there's a landing and steps down to your right, right?
Yes. Yep.
Leading towards the driveway.
Yes.
And that is pre-existed for quite some time, in that same area?
Yes.
So what I'm trying to understand, though, is where when you say you're looking to cover it, how much of it are you looking to cover? To go right to the 9'6"?
Yes.
And is there a sketch that shows what that cover is gonna look like and what the structure looks like?
No, I don't have one available at the moment.
Okay, and
You can't do that.
9'6", right? We got a problem.
You can't, whether the step's there or not, it's open air, but once he covers it.
It's a structure.
It's a structure and he's.
Right, we've had this issue before with the covering. Our bylaw has a section about covered decks. And so right now, the way it's looked at for setbacks dimensionally, so I'm trying to remember what section might be in here, 2.3.6.
You can only come 0.7 from.
What's that
You
mean?
can only come 0.7 forward of the house, in a straight line across. It's gonna be 16 feet setback.
Right, we can only give you relief dimensionally for when it has the cover to 16 feet from the front property line to give you a dimensional special permit varying the minimum by 20%. So where 20 feet is the minimum, we would only be able to give you relief, which we regularly do for petitioners here. We give the maximum dimensional relief in just about all cases, but all we have jurisdiction to permit to be covered is up to 16 feet from the front yard setback. So what I'd suggest, and we haven't given this type of relief. It may sound minor, like minor relief because it's already has a structure built there, but it requires a dimensional special permit, which you've asked for, and the maximum we can give a dimensional special permit for is 20% of the applicable setback.
Okay.
So what you could do, and I can see where it shows 16.7 to the front corner of the house. So it would basically be covering just that small portion that's 16 feet from the house. And we would need to see a plan that shows the front of the house and the proposed overhang.
Okay.
So do you want to come back to our next meeting and take a look at it and see if that might work for you?
So you want a design to see what it's going to cover?
Yeah, we need to see what it's gonna look like.
Okay. Every neighborhood, every person on the street has a cover already over their stoop.
Yeah.
And we spoke with the building department pretty much in length, and they were okay with all of this. I mean, I even have the post already in place. Like, they told me this was a rubber stamp.
Well, I'm sorry, I've been here a long time. Dan's been here all of us been here a long time, most of us at least, and we just don't have the jurisdiction to give the relief once it's covered for the dimensional special permit.
Are all your neighbors 16 feet?
It's a 16 feet, that's as far as we have the ability to give. So I don't know what your neighbor's dimensions are, I don't know if they pre-existing zoning or the current bylaw that has that restriction. But the relief that you're asking us for here would be a variance. And variance is extraordinary relief. You would have to show that because of the shape and topography, soil conditions of your property, that you were entitled to argue that it requires, you have no other choice that you could make. You don't have variance criteria here.
Prior to the revision of the zoning bylaw, we didn't have that limit dimensional
Right.
variance for the 20%, so you could go out 8 feet, it's the same thing.
Right, so how long has that been though,
But
since,
still, all these neighbors, I'm sure,
they may have done it then?
you know.
Right, it may have been on the prior iteration of the bylaw. You know, that's a question, you know, we're not, we interpret the bylaw and we enforce the bylaw, give relief, but we don't make the bylaw. So an earlier iteration of the bylaw permitted more relief on the dimensional special permit. And what happened was, it changed so that it's this 20% that people would get, and it was looking for some consistency, is my understanding, that people would get the 20% of the applicable setback relief, but we don't have jurisdiction outside of a variance to award the relief.
Your house is unique. I was just looking at Google Maps, and you're right, all the houses, like every house has a front porch that's covered, except yours, so there's really no, we don't know how long those front porches may have existed. Could have predated the zoning changes that you have to deal with now,
Okay,
so.
so we
we're
need to
limited.
get
Yeah, we're
we need to
limited,
get-
really.
plans, you want plans for the roof and what it's going to look like. Is there anything else that we need to get?
You would just need to show the,
And the dimensions from the front lot line to that portion of the covered porch, so we can, there can't be any further
What's that?
into the front setback than, what, 16 feet?
16 feet.
And then we're still saying they'd need a variance?
No.
No, we can give a dimensional special permit for 16 feet, so we can cover a portion of
Yeah, which is not much.
the
No, you
stoop,
can
it's
cover
not
like
much.
8 inches from the left, and then it jogs back. Just, you go 8 inches from the left side of the building, go straight across, 40% of your deck's gonna be covered, 40% isn't, but you're still gonna get like a little, when you're standing at the front door, you're gonna get
You'll be covered,
protected rain-wise.
right. It would cover just the front door a bit, but it's not gonna cover that whole stoop.
Our bylaw
So,
specifically says.
so are you trying to say there's no permit that would let me cover that whole deck?
Yeah.
There isn't.
That's unbelievable. Do you know how long I've been talking to the town about this? I'm telling you, months, and months and months. And to hear that now is, honestly, it's insanity. That's not gonna happen.
I'm sympathetic, I'm sorry, but we don't have the authority to do it. We grant dimensional special permits all the time, we only have authority to the 20%. So, you know, the remedy you might have is to talk to the planning department and the planning board to see if they were interested in changing the bylaw. It would be a long process, and it would, but that's the only way that it's gonna happen, is a change to the bylaw.
The bylaw does say specifically that it encourages covered porches in the design and architecture section. So it's something that is recognized as, looked upon favorably, but with the dimension of your particular house, it doesn't afford you that right.
Okay.
So, Marissa, do we have a date for our next meeting?
June 21st, unless, we also have the 13th.
I wasn't gonna put anything else on for the 13th, but do we
Okay.
have anything else yet for the June 21st?
We do have a few filings, yeah.
So, I'm gonna put the matter over to June 21st, sir, with your agreement to continue.
Okay.
Okay, and if you have questions about the plans that we're looking for, I would say, keep in touch with Marissa at the building department, at the planning department, excuse me.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Just the two left?
Just the two. You're,
I'm
you pick
gonna
out,
see if Marissa needs me to sign anything.
Oh, at the building department.
well, we have a new inspector. So he just started and, you know, so we, right, so we for the, bylaw. Okay, so I'll see you, Brad.
All right, see ya.
Is Brad out of here?
He's recused from the next two. So the next matter is 2128 Cheryl Miller, 17 Crossman Ave. Mr. Drukas, you're here on that one?
Yes.
Okay, welcome back.
Thank you. Just Lucas, attorney, office in Salem, representing Cheryl Miller, the petitioner, owner of the property at 17 Cross.
As you know, I've provided to the board some updated plans that were filed in the last couple of weeks with an updated site plan as well as updated architectural plans. And I believe the architect is on Zoom. His name is Stephen Miller, no relation. And my client is seeking both a dimensional special permit for a non-conforming lot and a special permit for adding to a non-conforming structure. We are proposing to make an addition to the rear of her home and building a smaller rear deck further into her rear yard. We're seeking relief from the side yard setback of 7.5 feet on the left side of her property as you face the property from CROSMAN Avenue. This addition will expand the relatively small house consisting of gross floor area of 1,730 square feet to 2,168 square feet, an increase of gross, easy for me to say, floor area by 438 square feet. It is a first floor addition only, and it is in the area where there's an existing deck, which is basically taking that deck area over and adding it to her kitchen and creating a mudroom. The new deck, there will be a new deck added behind the addition into the same direction into the rear yard with a rear yard setback of 20 feet. This will reduce our existing rear yard setback from 103 feet 8 inches to 93 feet 8 inches as it moves into the rear yard, and as it is within the side yard setbacks. This lot is a lot that was created in 1912 along the lines of all of the homes. There was a subdivision, a 25-lot subdivision that was filed in 1912. The homes all had roughly 60 feet of frontage, and on the right side of CROSMAN, as you go down, they were 150 feet deep. So they're approximately 9,000 square feet. We are seeking special permit relief under bylaw provisions 2.3.6.0 for the dimensional special permit, and under 2.2.7.0 for adding to the non-conforming structure. The primary issue involves the side yard setback of 7.5 feet is presently on that left side of the house. The setback is only 4 feet 8 inches. The petitioner proposes to extend within that same side yard setback, maintaining the 4 feet 8 inches for a distance of an additional 10 feet. This will be encroaching on the side yard setback approximately 27 square feet. We've reduced the size of the deck in the rear of the property, which was 10 feet 7 inches by 30 feet, to this deck that's 8 feet by 12 feet. The addition is basically being proposed in the same area as the existing deck and creates almost the same area as the deck. It was approximately 35 by 11, as shown on the site plan.
as well as the architect's rendering. Addition as proposed by my client is deemed necessary that will allow her to maintain her residence in Swampscott at the location as she needs a more modern, up-to-date kitchen and mudroom area, as the existing kitchen is totally inadequate in this day and age. Accordingly, we ask that relief be granted pursuant to sections 2.3.6.0, subsections 1 through 5, and 2.2.7.8, the special permit in keeping with the provisions of 5.3.2.0, subsections 1 through 6. The need for a dimensional special permit arises out of the fact that the lot was created, as I said, and the house being built back in 1922. The present requirement for frontage is 100 feet, and the lot was created with 60 square feet, as I advised, with a depth of 150 feet. Accordingly, we believe that we meet the dimensional special permit requirements for the relief being requested as contained in section 5.3.2.0 and subsections 1 through 6, such that the benefit to the town and the neighborhood outweigh any adverse impacts of the proposed use, taking into account the characteristics of the site and the proposal, and considering also the social, economic, and community needs, which are preserved by the proposal traffic flow and safety, including parking and loading, the adequacy of utilities and other public services, neighborhood character and social structures are maintained, impact on the natural environment is negative, minimal, excuse me, and potential for physical impact, including impact on town services, tax base, and employment is not affected. With such findings, we ask that you approve a special permit for adding to the non-conforming structure. We also believe we meet the requirements of findings for a dimensional special permit under 2.3.6.0, subsections 1 through 5, and that there is no practical option which achieves the same or is more consistent with the architectural scale and style of structures in the immediate area. Such reduction is accomplished without substantial detriment to the neighborhood. The proposed structure is in keeping with the style and scale of architecture in the immediate area. The benefit to the town outweigh any adverse effect, considering the site and the proposal relative to the site. There is no greater increase into the side yard setback than it presently exists. We will answer any questions that you have. The architect is, as I say, I believe, is on Zoom, and that we have received support from 12 of abutters and neighbors, which I believe have sent letters in, and I provided, I believe, to you, in addition to the plans, some pictures showing the neighborhood and showing the nature of the lots, all being, as I said, 60 by 150 along that side of CROSMAN Ave, and revealing that my client's structure is one of the smaller structures on that side of the street, and that all of them have pretty much the same configuration. And the driveway on one side and a small side yard. Most of the side yard setbacks on one side of the house are not up to the present code of 7.5 feet. So if you've got any questions, we're more than happy to answer them as best we can. And I know that we have one neighbor you're going to be hearing from, Ken, representing a neighbor who's the immediate neighbor who's not in favor of this project. We did have some conversation to see if we could potentially get that neighbor on board, and we're not able to accomplish what I think that neighbor would like to see.
So my question on the, I talked a lot on an earlier petition about Peralta, and when I looked at this petition months ago, I was thinking that it had some of the similarities, but the change on the side yard, it's not a conforming change. It's a non-conforming change.
Not a section, not a 6.
I know it's not a section 6, but my question is, if the dimensional just as we were talking the last petition, our dimensional special permit lets us give us the 20%, your argument is that, well, no, it lets you give to what your existing side yard you're looking for the 4.8 instead of 6 feet. So it's an issue of a foot, 1.2 or so, right. So,
But we're not decreasing, we're not encroaching any further into it.
Inside, as long as it's not more non-conforming, we've let it, because that's the first thing I said. I said, oh, it's gotta be 6, but then, because it's 4.8 now, there's all those extensions.
I
And
just
because
wanted,
this is not, usually we let people do it along the whole entire
we
plane.
have,
And they're not going up, they're just doing one story, so if anything, it's less
See,
than
this
what we
case, this is exactly like
typically allow.
the case that we had a few months ago, in the past year on Norfolk Avenue.
That's the one.
Exact same case,
Yeah.
exact same case. And I remember I felt bad about that one too. We approved it, but I felt bad.
In this
but
case, though, there's an
it-
entire driveway between the houses as well. But I just think it's very typical of what we approve.
Right, and it's falls within the, that Belalta case, because it's an extension of a nonconformity.
right, but it's,
Belalta is.
but that,
It's
but
not-
that talks.
It's not creating a new nonconformity, just extending an existing one.
Right, and that's what we have done historically.
Yeah.
Right, we've
So
gone
what's
to
the
that
alternative?
edge.
The alternative is to clip her 1.5 feet of her kitchen and have her build it at 6 feet for that little yard, right?
Right.
Yeah, which we wouldn't say all of
Well,
a sudden.
let me listen to what Ken has to say
Yeah.
about
but
that.
What did you accomplish there?
Yeah.
Wish to hear from anyone else who wishes to speak in favor before you hear from us?
No, we have all the letters. I've read all the letters and emails.
Right,
We have to hear
we'll
about
get
that.
there. I just want to focus first on the legal issue.
I think you have hit the nail on the head, and I'm going to just expand on that. Just sort of giving us a little bit of perspective. I represent Gail Gibbs. She's sitting to my right, on the left. She is the only presumptive party that has standing because of her location. Currently, the existing house is 4 feet 8 inches to the side. And as described, it was built in 1922. Zoning didn't come into effect until 1924. The subdivision, it was correctly described, consists of, and maybe if I can bring this up, it'll make it a little easier for all of you to see it. Then it'll give you some perspective with regard to the lot size. What's unique about these lot sizes is they're long. They're 150 feet long. So, there on the front, and you can pass them out, is the lot, it's lot number 10. On the other side is the deed, is described, the specific lot is lot number 10. Why this is important, why this is important is because one of the aspects of what you're being called to determine under the criteria, which is the criteria under 2360. It's not the criteria under 2270 at all. And that criteria, and as Mr. Rose indicated, does permit under certain circumstances the extension of this nonconformity, but it's under different standards. And one of the standards, it's actually the very first standard, is one that indicates no practical alternative. And then it goes on to say capable of complying. So we're in a situation now where somebody is asking for relief. They're not entitled to anything, but if they meet certain minimum requirements, you can entertain their request. So what makes this lot interesting? What makes it interesting is you have all the room in the world to go back without creating any new nonconformity, because the lot is 150 feet long. Now, 2 of the other homes on that street built additions that go back. And I'll give you those addresses, and maybe those people are here tonight. But what is important is I'd ask you to focus in on not these sections that don't apply, but the sections that do. And I would ask you to look specifically at that particular lot. Now, my client had sent earlier, I think on March the 1st, a letter to the board, which I believe has been incorporated in the materials. She's also prepared to speak, and she's prepared a memorandum of law, which she'll be sharing with you as well. Because it also brings up some very other interesting aspects of our zoning law, which candidly, I didn't see until it was pointed out to me. And it's interesting how you can read something 100 times, but when someone else reads it to you for the first time, someone else reads it to you for the first time, you see it differently. And what was interesting, and I'll bring this to your attention, this is a section dealing with site plan special permit. Now, site plan special permit is only triggered when we have an 800-foot extension, or, as our bylaw says, if it's been aggregated over the last 5 years. Now, there was an earlier decision, and that decision was approved by this board. And that decision was rather interesting because that decision indicated, and I quote from that decision, under 19-20, it said the current property is non-conforming with respect to the lot size, frontage, and side yard setback. It now goes on to say, upon construction, per submitted plans, the side yard nonconformity will be eliminated, and there will be no other substantial change. That's what that decision said, and that was the finding in that decision. And if for some reason the applicant didn't agree with the decision, the applicant could have appealed. Now, interestingly also is that it was exactly at this time that Ms. Georgeson was purchasing her home. So she never was noticed of this hearing. She wasn't living there then. The prior owner, who was selling it to her at the time, would have been preferable had he informed her of this hearing so she could have attended, but she wasn't here and she had no notice. But if you read that section, it says, and I quote from that section, I quote in a moment for that section. Oh, here it is. Thank you. I'll be with you in 1 second when I find my section. Oh, here it is.
Somebody has their mic on Zoom. Appreciate keeping that on mute.
Okay, under section 5400, and then I go to 5420, talks about applicability. It says, for purposes of computing the total gross floor area of a site plan, all extensions or additions to projects/developments approved within the 5-year previous calendar years shall be aggregated. And this was, in fact, approved within 5 years. So in theory, this says that insofar as it's more, the other one was more than 800, and this similarly will be aggregated to that, it would require a site plan special permit. That was never requested. So it's our position that the application itself is deficient because of its failure to have comported with the requirements of 5420.
Wait, can I ask a clarifying question on that?
Yes.
Are you talking about the special permit that was never built?
Yes.
Okay.
Because it says approved. And ironically, it doesn't say built. And I'm reading, and I don't have the ability to construe what I think it might mean.
So are you suggesting, so I'm sorry to interrupt, are you suggesting we add the non-built addition to this new addition?
No, I'm not suggesting you do anything. I'm suggesting that the bylaw specifically states unequivocally that if it's been approved within the last 5 years, whether it's been built on or not is of no consequence, then you are obligated to add it to and aggregate it to the existing required or requested relief. And if that were the case, and since the earlier one was over 800, this clearly is, and therefore it requires a site plan special permit. I don't think there's really any, as much as you have a look of disbelief. I similarly never saw it that way, but it reads clearly. And if it's inappropriate in terms of an oversight,
If it was approved 35 years ago and still.
No, but it says, Mr. Rose, it says 5 years.
I
Doesn't go back
understand it,
35
but that
years.
permit lapsed, that special
No.
permit, that relief would have lapsed.
I agree with you. I'm not disagreeing with any of the rational thought that I'm hearing from the board. What I am saying is that our bylaw, for better or worse, has a provision in there that says unequivocally that you add to anything that's been approved within the last 5 years. That's what it says.
The majority of this addition is where that addition is. You would be adding, I mean,
You know
I
something,
think you need to go another route, I'm sorry, but
I'm not
that doesn't
disagreeing
make any
with the
sense.
logic of your argument. I am just pointing out the specificity and the inability to vary what your bylaw says. You know, if your bylaw in many regards can be changed, it's amended, goes before planning board, I think this is an error. I really do. But it doesn't give me the authority, nor you, I would suggest, to vary your own bylaw because you believe that it was never intended to mean
So
what
the
it
guy
says.
before me gets a permit to build a house, and then I decide, I buy the lot, he never builds the house, the permit lapsed because it wasn't acted on in 2 years, and now I wanna come and build a house, I gotta count the house that that guy was gonna build?
Of course, you would be required to go and seek a site plan special permit. Now.
For the house that that guy was gonna build,
Now,
never
now,
got built, the
now,
permit
Whether,
lapsed.
whether in fact it became an obstacle is a different issue. But it just is, it's an additional step that is required. It says, this, for the same reason, there's an additional step that you have to go before the planning board for them to opine on certain site plan special permit requirements. That's what it says, and that's what we do. And it's clear in this, it says the word approved, and because it was previously required. I see nowhere in there that it says it has to be built. I only see the word.
Or whether the
Now,
permit
now,
lapsed.
The word approved,
The permit's lapsed, right?
but that, why would it possibly give you the 5-year look-back period for the word approval if it in fact meant something else? I understand, no, I understand that you can say that it was
It
never
wants you to
intended-
start from the approval date as opposed to the finished construction date. That's why
They
the
don't
5
want you,
years.
they obviously don't want you to build in pieces, in
Well, you know
exceed
something?
the amount that you
You
would
know,
need
you
to
can make
avoid
that argument,
site
and
plan
I'm not
review.
disagreeing with what they may have thought. I just am telling you that that's not what it says.
Okay, well, you'll have to litigate that, I think.
Well, we had the situation with the aggregation on that Puritan, it's in Puritan Road,
Yep,
Puritan Avenue.
here's the
House.
memo, legal counsel memo.
Oh, yeah, okay, and, but in all those, everything that was aggregated there was in fact built.
Built.
And I'm a strict constructionist, as you probably know, Ken,
Well,
and I
that's-
see that it says
I should've-
approved,
I
you're
should've
right.
looked at you. So
I
am
do see that it says approved, and I understand your argument, but I think we also have to, apply common sense to it, and I just think that's an oversight in the bylaw.
Oh, I believe it's an
That it's a
oversight too.
mistake, I do.
But I
I don't think
think
we're bound,
oversights-
and I think that in those circumstances, we're not bound to it. And,
Well,
we should read it so that it makes sense. I mean, I think Andy makes a good point. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me
All right, let me
to
put that-
count something that was not built.
Let me put that one aside.
In the
for a
permit.
moment.
And there's an overlap. I mean, this is being built where that addition,
Well, not entirely, it's not entirely an overlap, but I understand your point. And
Memo from Puritan.
you can't count the same space twice.
The footprint is different, but I'm not gonna belabor the point. But I thought, for the purpose of establishing a record tonight, that my failure to address it would be an adoption of the position that it was not required.
What about that second part that you highlighted on 5422? Change
5422
of
says,
footprint of a residence that previously required site plan
it said,
approval.
construction, it uses the word construction, exterior alteration. But what I'm saying is 5420 just says approved. So it says that previously required site plan, special permit. It's number one, changes or alters the footprint of a residence that previously required site plan approval and a special permit, which it did. So, I mean, I have no trouble making this argument, and I can do it with a straight face. I'm not saying that I
When did it
agree.
previously require
I'm not
that?
saying I agree with
When
the
did it
argument.
previously require site plan approval or site plan special permit?
The earlier one did. The one that was.
Oh, the one that wasn't built, okay.
The one that was not built.
Larger, the one that wasn't built, that was approved and not built, was 2 stories, had a master suite. It, was a significantly larger addition.
Well, once again, we're fighting against logic versus prose. That's what it says. If the board wishes to dismiss that, that's the prerogative of the board, but it doesn't negate my ability, A, to make the argument, B, to establish a record. The other factor, and there are a few others, is that the earlier decision, similarly, because that earlier decision was incorporated by reference into this application, indicates that the nonconformity, and I read it to you, and let me read it to you again. It said that the current property is nonconforming, and with respect to the side yard frontage and side yard setback, upon construction per submitted plans, the side yard nonconformity will be eliminated, and there will be no other substantial change. That was authored by Mr. Rose, and it says what it says. And if you disagree, or if the party who formally put forth this application disagreed, they could have appealed it. It didn't. So right now, this is a recorded decision. Whether they built on it or not, the board clearly was mindful of the fact that they wanted to eliminate that nonconformity. And they, in fact, incorporated that in their decision. I don't see anything in this new plan which does, in fact, eliminate the nonconformity. It's an extension of 4 feet 8 inches, where the best this board should be doing is 6, but the requirement is 7.5. Now, who is looking at this out their window? It's Ms. Georgeson. She's the one who sees this wall. There was some discussion, and you're absolutely right, and Mr. Drukas was correct. The last time we were here, it was probably close to 6 months ago, when I brought up the issue of the jurisdictional inability to go forward because there was a publication error. I left it with, maybe we can talk about this.
Yeah, I don't want to hear about settlement discussions.
No, there wasn't any. That's just the point.
I don't want to hear whether there were or there weren't, because that taints, this
I
board is.
don't wish to taint anything, but I know that the board is always interested to know.
We just encourage people to talk and try to settle their issues. If they don't,
we had that
there's a
issue
reason
on
why
Cutting Road.
we don't listen to settlement.
When we had that issue on Cutting Road, and this board said, but the applicant made.
I didn't sit on that petition.
Okay, well, I'm looking at this, I'll look to this, my peripheral vision is now looking at the other one. So I don't see that happening either. So now the board is left with the big one. The one that seems to be the proverbial elephant in the room one, which is no practical alternative capable of complying. Now, unlike the other section that talks about substantially more detrimental, that's not our criteria.
Well, I am not convinced that it's not our criteria.
Well, it can't be because the
that.
section, the only section that gives you this relief, under 2365, the only section that addresses that, the only one, because if you go back to the 22701, you're talking about the 20% max.
Right, but what town council has told us in that Puritan Road petition.
But that was different. I believe that's a different issue.
What she said was,
That was the cutting.
she pointed us to that Palo decision,
Well, she
which
pointed
basically said, the local bylaw can't trump 48 section 6. 48 section 6 controls. So, that's.
But this does not fall into that category. It does not.
Why not?
Because you are creating a new nonconformity. You are now going in 4 feet 8 inches from the sideline where 7.5 feet is required. If in fact, and this is where I may disagree, if we have a nonconforming lot, in this case we do. We have a frontage issue, we have a size issue. But say we're just going back, and we can go back, we have 150 feet to go back. That case would apply. But this case, we want to go to the side.
That would be a conforming change to the non-conforming structure. But Belalta talks about both.
I don't believe that it talks about this, because you know something, if in fact you were to take that perspective, your job would be a lot easier. Because all cases, I think, pretty much fall into that.
You look at that still, Paul?
Which one?
Oh, Belalta.
You don't have any non-conformity, it's still 4 feet 8, so there's no additional.
Well, Belalta talks about conforming changes when it's not, oh, that's yours,
It's not
I've
a
got one here.
non-conforming change. It's a
And it
non.
also talks about non-conforming, it talks about whether you needed a variance. So if you give
But
me
in
1
that case,
second.
in that case, the argument was that they were required by that board for a variance. We have a methodology in Swampscott that doesn't require a variance for a dimensional issue. We have that prerogative under 2365 if we find certain criteria, the least of which is there's no practical alternative. So what is the practical alternative? Because we've never, and I want this board to understand this, we've never taken the position that we are against an addition. We've never taken the position that our next door neighbor can't add to her kitchen. What we're suggesting is we would like that not to be 4.5 feet. Maybe we can move it in a little bit. And the little bit is the difference between 4.8 feet and 6 feet, which you have the authority to grant under 2270, which I believe is the criteria which gives you that flexibility. Why would we like that? Because it would push the house in a little away from my client. The other issue, which I want to address, is this.
But before you get there,
Okay.
I'm going to read from the Peralta case. Upon the second except clause of statute governing modification of nonconforming structures, creating explicit protections for 1 and 2 family residential structures, and allowing increases in nonconforming nature of such structures upon a finding of no substantial detriment to the neighborhood. So in that case, we would have to make that finding. If permitting authority determines that proposed alteration or addition would intensify the existing nonconformities or result in additional ones, authority must consider additional question of whether proposed modification would be substantially more detrimental to neighborhood. So it talks about it in the for new nonconformities.
But that's,
I'm reading from the head.
No, I
Wes.
understand what you're reading from, and I appreciate the effort that this board is putting in, but I think that eviscerates our entire bylaw.
It may, but that's why.
But I don't think it was ever intended to.
That's why the SJC came out with the decision, because bylaws were going too far. That's what it appears to me. That's what they say here.
I believe, Mr. Koninsky, that case was written with regard to a variance request, not a special permit request. And I may be incorrect, because I haven't.
No, you're right. It was, but the,
So that's the point. The point is, they thought the variance request, because they didn't have a dimensional special permit, exceeded the authority, and therefore this case came into being. We've addressed that, and we have addressed it in a way that I think tries to take into consideration a neighbor who's impacted, because otherwise neighbors would have literally no rights, and anybody who wants just about anything they want can make that argument, and I don't think that was the intent. While you ponder that thought, I just don't want to take up all of your time tonight. I want you to take a look at a picture. And can I approach?
yes, of course.
Here's my memo, too.
Yeah. I'll do.
Would you mind showing me the picture first?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, thank you.
These just basically are the same ones that I
Yeah, they
submitted
probably
electronically
These
to
are pictures from her.
I just brought big
okay.
color copies.
Are they the ones, we had them in the file, they're,
Show the row of evergreen trees.
Well, they've grown since the last picture, so we decided to do that. I want you to look at, excuse me, we have some pictures, and I also, this is a memorandum.
these all the same, these
Yeah,
pictures?
yeah, they're the same. And this is a memorandum of law that was done by my client, who's an attorney.
Funny you didn't share that with me, Ken.
Oh, I'm sorry.
When did you get this?
It's a memorandum.
Oh, yeah, I wish you'd given this
Yeah,
before.
okay.
Yeah, this is, I'm not gonna read this now. This is complicated stuff, you know?
Oftentimes, the board asks for a memorandum to hear it.
No, I appreciate a memorandum, just like that when it's time.
And I appreciate that, yeah, they have it, but
We've,
not, doesn't do us any good right now.
I think that the memorandum is just a recitation of what I've said. There's nothing in that memorandum that I haven't addressed. There's nothing in there that would be surprising.
My
But what I wanted to continue on with those pictures is that you were given a plot plan.
Maybe.
This, actually, Mr. Drukas was kind enough to give me this plot plan. And the plot plan, it shows where the trees are. If you have a chance, can you look at your plot plan just for a moment, please? And that would be, Ms. Meany, if we can just put that plot plan up for just a second.
The most recent,
Yes, the certified plot plan that was just recently prepared. Okay. Yes, okay, great. You will see on the left-hand side, bordering Ms. Georgeson's home, which is on the left, a number of very large, mature trees. Those are the ones that are depicted in the picture. The applicant states in the application, quote, "No trees will be removed." And yet, the trees are depicted in a portion of the foundation. It is our position that if the board was even considering that there is no practical alternative, that at least it would, in fact, incorporate the request in the statement of the petitioner that no trees will be removed. Because that's what she's saying. And if you want to accept the petitioner and what she's stating, and the relief she's looking for, predicated upon no trees being removed, I would ask this board, as a condition, if the board were predisposed to grant the relief and make a determination that there's no practical alternative, which is to go back, that no trees be taken down. Because that gives her a limited amount of privacy. Because right now, that house is 4 feet, 8 inches from the sideline. It's an issue. It's an issue because, you know something? Our planning board, our town meeting determined what they now believe is an appropriate distance between homes. They gave you certain liberties to go the 20% if you, in fact, made certain findings. But this is even closer. And the only reason that that house is 4 feet, 8 inches is because that house was built prior to zoning at all. So the extension of that wall is an extension of pre-zoning. It's grandfathering, in a sense, what you could never do. And it's my belief, and hopefully some of you may adopt that thought, that this is extraordinary relief because of its impact on the abutter. And the abutter's concern should be, in fact, adopted or at least considered. And what can we do? We can do a couple of things. We can accomplish what the applicant is seeking, which is to extend her kitchen, which has been there since I don't know when it was built, maybe sometime since 1924. It's apparently served the house well for that time. And sure, everybody would like a new modern kitchen. And she can have that. But she doesn't have to do it at the expense of her neighbor. You know, you're taking away rights of neighbors. In our belief that we are, in fact, providing certain relief to applicants, we have to take into consideration the impact on the abutter. And to suggest there is no impact, it flies in the face of zoning in its entirety. It creates additional density. That's what the cases say. That's what the Gallo case said. As a matter of fact, the case that's cited, I'm not necessarily going to bring it up, but in the dicta of the Gallo case, it talked about trees. It talked about the importance, and it talked about density. And it talked about all of the aspects of zoning which should be taken into consideration, regardless of this case, which seems to fly in the face of all the logic that I've ever learned about zoning, to say that you can disregard it all. Fine, disregard it all, but at the same time, be mindful of the neighbor. Try to work with the neighbor. Try to understand that this could happen to anybody, and those anybodies have certain rights, certain expectations when they move into that house as to what the abutter has the ability to do. I mean, I think that's a reasonable expectation, and I think that expectation is not being considered. And I would ask the board to consider it, and I would ask the board to entertain whatever concept that they can possibly come up with to provide some level of screening. And I think the trees do a great job, at least as a start. I think a better job would be to
All right, I want to get to here, where we've used a lot of time. I've given you a lot of time to make your arguments.
Well, I think the argument is worthy of discussion.
I get it. I get the argument. I think I'm likely to send this to town council for an opinion, my thought, because although we've given relief on that vertical plane for years, and although I think that the case law suggests you can do it, I'd like to get some confirmation about that, is what I think. What do you guys think about that?
I think we allowed it before. I don't.
Right, but I don't know if we were right or
But we did it for a
not.
two-story building like a couple of months.
May I be heard?
We've done it.
I think that on that Norfolk Avenue,
Yeah, that's
trying to
the one I'm on
remember if the, I don't think the setback was this narrow. I think it may have complied with the 20%, I'm not sure, I can't remember.
No,
What was the relief?
On-
What
on
was
the
the Norfolk
Norfolk
Ave one? I'm trying to remember what the,
It was the same thing, they were putting an addition off the back, and we allowed it along, it was an extension of the
two-story.
sideline nonconformity. And the neighbor on the left side opposed it?
oh, yeah. Was that the one with the jacuzzi that they were putting on the deck? or-
No,
No.
no.
No. I think it was a two-story addition,
Yeah.
Yeah,
right? But I can't remember what the sideline, I don't know if it was as small as 4.8. Or it may
right.
have been within the 20%.
But we let them go along the parallel line.
We did, and that was the
Inside, it
argument
was
we
more than
gave, that we
20%.
would just continue in the.
My
We've done
concern
that
is
for
whether
years.
this
Yeah.
Bellalta case, my concern is whether this Bellalta case eviscerates the dimensional special permit
Yeah,
section of the bylaw,
yeah,
right?
but it says right in the case.
But then I
that
see
the
section,
bylaw can only go so far.
but then there is, yeah, but there is a footnote 11, which I'm not really sure what it means, which is on the text. If the answer to that question is in the negative, and that question being,
The substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood.
this initial determination requires a permitting authority to identify the particular respect or respects in which the existing structure does not conform to the requirements of the present bylaw, and then determine whether there's an intensification or new nonconformities. If the answer to that is no, then the applicant will be entitled to a permit, meaning a building permit, to proceed with the alteration, the building permit. And then there's that footnote 11, which says, earlier cases loosely use the term special permit to describe the process. And then reference to the permitting procedure and the permit granting authority encompasses any designated process by which municipalities allow their residents to proceed with home building renovations in the ordinary course. I'm wondering if that means, okay, no, we can still apply the dimensional permit regulation. Is that what they're saying there? I don't know.
I'm not sure. So, is there anyone that wanted to speak in favor of this petition? Yes, grab your name and your address, please.
Rick Leslie Dexter, 32 Crosman Ave. I think the.
Oh, sorry, they're asking, can you go to the mic?
Oh, sure.
Well, I'll tell you what, the mic can go to.
Oh, there we go.
Thank you.
Okay, Rick and Leslie Dexter, 33 Crosman. We're two doors down from Jorgensen.
Same side of the street or?
Same side of the street, and we were one of the guinea pigs in the neighborhood who went through this process twice. In 2000, we built a 1,500 multi-floor addition on our house, invested heavily in the neighborhood. And then in 2012, and let me go back, on the addition, we did go back, as Mr. Schuster said, we went in the 7.5 feet because we did have, it was a big addition. It wasn't 10 feet, it was 18 or 19 feet. So it was the right thing to do in that case. In 2012, we added on to our garage, which was non-conforming to start and is still non-conforming, but we granted a special permit for somewhere around 4 foot 10 inches to extend the garage down to the fence line. So to me, there's a precedent set. There's also a precedent set that the Singhs who lived in the house prior were ready to do their addition when they found another property, and I think Wenham that suited their needs better. We've been there 35 years. We've seen dozens and dozens of family turnover. I got to say that the neighborhood right now we have the best neighbors. Everybody's very tight. A lot of them are on the phone. There's a lot in the audience here. Almost every house on the street has had work, significant work done, whether it's additions, upgrades, windows, you name it. There's 3 houses that have done significant additions, and there's another one that's on the same area that's going to consider an addition also. So, given all that, the way, Leslie and I look at this is that 438 square feet, we did 1,500. Sings did, I think, was 1,200. So roughly 1/3 of the size of the Sings addition is being proposed. And whether it's at 4'8" or 5 foot or 7.5 off the sideline, it's still a structure that's sitting there. And the difference, to us at least, in that drawing, the addition is on the maximum distance between the 2 houses. Currently, Gail's sunroom is the closest. The addition is not. The addition is going to be much further away from the view. So, from that perspective, to me, to us, it's a very tasteful addition. It's small, and the amount of time and energy put into this, and the amount of money, of course, with inflation right now, and the contractors are not getting a contractor, and the inflation on appliances and building materials, even in the last 6 months, has put a very unfair burden on CHERYL Miller, in our opinion, and the additional surveys, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not sure what the real goal here is of Gail, of whether it's 4'8", 5 foot, 7.5. The tree issue is easy. We plant trees all the time. The town's been planting trees. Trees can be replanted if they have to be removed. And from that perspective, we, the Dexters, thoroughly support this addition and any other additions that will meet, special permit requirements on our street. We all are heavily invested in CROSMAN Ave. It's one of the best streets in the town, and we feel that this should not be delayed any further. And with all the points brought up, it's more self-serving than it is for the neighborhood. It's not detrimental to the neighborhood because the investment and the quality of life for CHERYL will be much improved. And I appreciate you giving me the time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wanted to speak?
You're still in favor, right?
I'm sorry? Still speaking in favor. Normally, that's where I would go first. I wanted to talk about the legal issue. I gave you 45 minutes or so. I've got another petition that's going to take us 2 hours to hear. So I'm going to hear from somebody else, some other people that have been sitting here, and I'll go back to you.
Thank you.
So, sure.
Many people in the room are hoping for that rubber stamp that the other guy mentioned, and that wasn't to be. But my name is Jamie Owens. My wife is Adriana. We are represented there as the abutters to the east, just to the right on the diagram. And I think Rick said most of it. We want to express our full-throated support for the addition. CHERYL has just been a model neighbor, a friend, a fast friend, and we don't see any issue with it. We think it would be an improvement to our neighborhood. So as the abutters to the east, we just wanted to share that with the group here and
thank you.
Show our support.
Appreciate that. Okay, yes.
Hi, I'm Leslie Dexter, as my husband has previously introduced me. I'm not sure when I look at this picture, and I live in the neighborhood and I am there. The addition, the very tiny addition that CHERYL is doing compared to the much larger addition that we did and that was approved for the previous owners of that property is, I've heard Gail and her lawyer talk about things like they don't want to look at a wall, they don't want to have the trees taken down because of the privacy and that you're infringing, and yet when you look at the plot plan, and if you look at it in real life, the addition is beyond her house. So it is not, she's not looking at a wall, she's not looking at additional footage there. She is not being crouched in. It is as far away from her house, her living house, as could be. Several people in the neighborhood have put additions like that, including ourselves, that have gone along the line, including Gail's house herself. Gail's house has had a kitchen addition very similar to what CHERYL is asking for, added to Gail's house, where it was non-conforming, continuing down, and if you will, using the terms, a wall being put up to the neighbors on the other side of Gail. And once again, it was approved because it's not next to the house, it's along the garage of the houses. The houses are forward of these additions, and doing an addition, CHERYL's present kitchen is so tiny that it's only 9 feet by 20, I think, is the present footprint of her kitchen. And Gail's house had the opportunity to extend her kitchen quite a bit and make it long and narrow, where CHERYL doesn't have that capability of doing that, and she has a very small kitchen. Doing any inset in the size of the addition that CHERYL is suggesting would cut her addition substantially. She doesn't have the room to do a small addition and bring it in. And it sounds like Gail is saying even 1 foot would be acceptable to her. Is 1 foot worth the expense and the aggravation that you've put
I'm going to
CHERYL
ask
and the
that you
whole
address your comments.
All right,
I'm going to move on and ask for some more
Okay.
comments. I know you're clearly in favor of this addition.
I am in favor.
So, is there anyone else, anyone that's on the Zoom call that wanted to be heard about this? You could use the raise your hand feature.
I do have a couple hands raised. Mike and Sarah Hakeem are first.
Okay.
Hi, thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, if I give you name and address.
Yeah, Michael Hakem, 27 CROSMAN Ave.
Okay.
We live 2 houses down from CHERYL on the same side of the street. Like everyone else so far, we are in full support. You know, CHERYL's been a great neighbor since she moved in. She's only been in the neighborhood about 1.5 years, but she's been a great neighbor. And like Rick had said, you know, our street is a very tight bonded street, and I think, you know, CHERYL fits in very well with us, and I think we're all in support of her doing what we all agree is probably a pretty small addition relative to the one that was previously approved by the cities. So we're in 100% support. And I think it's a great investment in the neighborhood. You know, anything we can do to keep CHERYL to stay living here, I think is a positive. So if this, you know, makes it, you know, safe for her and gives her a working kitchen and something that works for her, we're all for it.
Okay. I should just tell everyone, I'm going to only permit 10 more minutes on this petition, then we're going to need to continue it, because we still have another petition to go tonight, one that's been on the agenda for a long time, and I'm thinking, what does the board think about that issue for getting an opinion from town council on
I
this?
think that's a good idea.
We're gonna
yeah.
continue it, you might as well
might as well
get
not.
that.
If you're gonna continue it, but
All right.
I'm ready to vote now. I mean,
I'm ready to
that's
vote.
what we wanna do.
Okay, all right.
Like we've had a
Well,
lot
I
of
just want to then,
discussion about it.
Could I ask that I have an opportunity to be heard before you close it out?
I'm going to give you, I told you I'd give you an opportunity to be heard. I'm not going to close the public hearing yet. So I'm just going to ask people to keep their comments brief, because I think there may be a vote tonight. And
I remind anyone who wants to speak in support, who's out there on Zoom, that we have the letters and
we have all the
emails,
letters.
and we've read them.
We know there's a lot of people that are in support of the petition.
We got
So if
the
there are,
negatives?
So we're aware of the support.
Yeah, can we get the negative?
yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Jeff Wilson. I'm on CROSMAN Avenue. I'm number 55. I'm the same side as Gail and CHERYL, but further down towards the golf course side. Very briefly, I think you'll find that CHERYL has a lot of support from most of the folks here and on Zoom and through the letters. I would just encourage the board to vote tonight so we don't have to push this any further down the road. I think Cheryl's made many attempts to get in front of you all, and I would just encourage the board to make a choice tonight as opposed to taking further action. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm gonna, hang on, I was gonna just see if anyone on Zoom, anyone else wanted to be heard, knowing that we have comments in writing from people that have already been submitted. And then I think we're getting close.
Sorry, excuse me, I do have 2 more hands raised on
Okay.
Zoom. I have Thomas Driscoll.
Okay? Mr. Driscoll?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Tom Driscoll, 28 Crossman Ave, speaking to you from quarantine, or I would have been there. One thing that, not getting specific measurements, but Tara and I were there several years back. I believe Andy and Mark, you were both on the board at that time. We have the exact same scenario, and or had, and I don't know the measurements, but anyone in the neighborhood will tell you it was a pretty big addition, 2 floors in the basement. And we were allowed a special permit, and we built it exactly down the non-conforming line. And there was never an issue. I assume the bylaws have not changed since then. They may have, but I don't think this little quirky question that's being brought up by the opposition wasn't in place when we were there. So I'm just, there's a precedent set for me. You've done it for me, and I believe the Dexters have had it done for them, and I think if a lot of these new neighbors, the young kids, would look at a lot of them had additions put on, they had the same scenario. So getting hung up on something that you didn't get hung up on before, and everyone has done it the exact same way, we're really in favor of this, and for the goodness sakes, I just think a vote should be taken tonight. I don't think there's any need to have this reviewed or continued. I think the time has come for the board, and I urge you all please to vote tonight in favor of Cheryl. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Driscoll.
Tom, we made a mistake, table.
So, there's one more hand up on Zoom, Marissa?
Yes, Christopher LeBlanc.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Christopher LeBlanc, and I am the contractor that submitted the application. I do apologize when I said no trees were going to be taken down. I interpreted those as shrubs and
Not trees.
half dead at the time.
Okay, well, thank you.
Let's hear from the petition.
What's that?
Let's hear from the petition.
Yep, well, I'm gonna give you the last comment before I close the public hearing, okay? Is that fair? And I'm gonna let Chris, if you have something else, I know you raised your hand a few times here.
Yeah, I think I'm entitled to at least respond in part to some of the things that Ken said.
Use the microphone, please.
I have the microphone here. I would like to respond to some of the things that Ken said. I think in spite of what his position is about aggregating, I think when something elapses, it becomes void. And if it becomes void, and it can be recognized at law that something that has lapsed is void, and to make the argument that he's making, I think is absurd. As Heather pointed out, we're going to be building in the same place. That's not adding on. As far as the removal of trees, we considered those bushes. They're not, the arborvitaes are not considered trees. And the second point is when he starts talking about that we can reconfigure the addition so that it goes back further, you have to look at the topography that's shown on the plan. And you have to look at your pictures that show that the deck is basically, that it will be added on, is going on stilts. Because the land slopes down towards the back, which the more that you build towards the back, the more that you're adding to your cost of construction. And that gets to the issue of whether or not it's appropriate for us to build in this particular location. I don't want to take a lot more time in responding to the long speech that Ken went through, but I think it's very, very clear that if the other addition wasn't built, then you can't possibly count it because it isn't built. And with reference to his pointing out in that decision that the side yard nonconformity will be eliminated, if you look at the plans from the other one, that's clearly a mistake in what was written. And the fact that it wasn't appealed is fine. The petition, again, it lapsed. And once it lapsed, that language doesn't mean anything anymore, anywhere. And I would like to, I'll show you one last picture as to what the arborvitae's look like on the other side of the fence.
Yeah, I've got a picture of the arborvitae's looking.
That's, yeah, you don't have it from Cheryl's side of the fence.
Will you show it to me too, Chris?
Yes, I will.
Okay?
Half of them are dead. The other bush is dying.
Okay, I'm gonna.
I don't want to take
That's
too much
it?
time.
All right, so I'm gonna give the opportunity to.
Show them
you.
one picture.
Thank you.
I just want to
I
address a
only
couple
showed them one picture.
Chris, we're gonna
points
let.
that have been made. You know, people saying this is only affecting my deck or it's farther from my home and whatnot. As I put in the memorandum, one of my objections is a new window in the existing home. That's one of my objections. That increases crowding and decreases my privacy. And I don't understand why a big, large new window has to go facing my office, which is the furthest point out, the closest point to Cheryl's home. She wants to put a new window, not in the addition, in the existing home. And that is at the point where our homes are the closest to each other. So that does affect my privacy. And it's a valid concern, in spite of the fact of many neighbors poo-pooing it. It is, and it's in the case law too. Anything that decreases privacy, is a valid effect on an abutter. And I don't know why that window has to be there. As far as the arborvitae, they're not dying. I don't know what Mr. Drukas is saying. They're very healthy, and they're quite a wonderful privacy screen. And for people who don't live in my home, you have no idea what I'm looking at. And that's why I gave you the photos to the board. And you can see that I'm looking at trees. My view will change from trees to building, quite close to my home. And that is also a criteria that has been addressed in Massachusetts case law as increasing density and crowding. It's the experience of what you have. It's very nice. Mr. Driscoll had his addition put on, and Mr. Dexter. That was years ago. I have no idea what the circumstances were as far as the side yard setbacks in those circumstances. And they certainly cannot attest to the fact that it's in any way, shape, or form a similar circumstance. So they're not really applicable. I do empathize with Cheryl. I've never opposed her building an addition. I've only asked that she consider that where she is placing it is going to have an effect on her closest abutter, and I am the only abutter who is aggrieved as far as having their setback encroached on. No other neighbor, no other abutter, including Mr. Owens, is having his side yard setback encroached upon. I'm the only one. And I know that makes me the outlier. I'm the outlier is what I've been called. I've also been threatened that I'm not going to live in harmony in my neighborhood if I don't fire Ken Schutzer and drop my opposition to the petition. It's been, someone kicked over my planter in my front yard and broke it the day after the last hearing. And I'm sorry, go ahead. If you want to make a big, make me the pariah of the neighborhood, go right ahead. You're not in my position.
All right, we're going to address the
Yeah.
comments to the board, and as I told them, so please address them to the board, And let's stick to the substance of the petition.
No one's in the same position as I am. That's it. I'm the abutter, I'm the aggrieved. You know, that's the way it is. I understand no one else feels the same way, but they're not in my position, and that's it.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Ian.
You have a question? Yeah.
I do, because I hear, I'm hearing both sides, and I could be sympathetic in some aspects of it. So if they were to not put the window in the old part of the house, swap some kitchen cabinets and move it down into the new addition, would you feel better about that?
If it's in the part of the addition that's further from my home, yeah.
Yeah.
Part of the addition will be, it looks like it sort of jogs. I think there's already another new window planned facing my home that's a little bit.
In other words, she's asking for a relief, they're asking for 9.5 feet of relief on that addition. That's the length of that addition. But they're gonna put a window, and they have kitchen cabinets running the entire length. They're gonna put a window in the current section.
Correct.
Maybe you could swap.
It's over the sink, though.
Okay.
Yeah, but we,
Okay.
They have it.
So then, swap your sink. I mean, it's not the end of the
No, the
world.
sink's over here. Well, from the plans, the sink's facing the backyard.
You know, I mean, you could swap the stove and the sink, you know, you're doing a new addition to be accommodating, you know, because it's in the 5 feet. If you want to be at 6 feet, put all the windows you want in there, make it all glass, as an example. I'm just asking as maybe a compromise to get you out of, I don't know.
I'm not talking about.
And what about the trees? I do know from Ken and other people that in other cases, if trees are destroyed, then new trees could be planted. Is that something?
It's something that we would have the ability to condition.
Okay. And I would ask that you do that. It doesn't sound as if anyone is particularly concerned that I'm losing 20-foot trees that provide me with privacy, but I would ask that if you are inclined to approve it, that you might consider requiring, now that they've admitted that they are removing some arborvitae, although the initial petition said no trees would be removed, I think what I'm hearing is that some trees will have to be removed.
Well, 9.5 feet of them will have to be.
Right, so what is?
Those look like the bushes. He's saying that those are the worst.
They're 20 feet tall trees to me. And so I'm asking you, if you are inclined to approve it, to condition it on planting 9.5 feet of new trees of a comparable
Well,
kind.
you can't put the trees in that 9.5 feet because you only got 4.5, they won't grow. You know, so.
Right.
That's why I didn't ask for that initially, so I don't know how you solve that. My privacy's gone once the trees are gone.
There's no windows where the trees are.
Arborvitae's wouldn't survive in that narrow area with the light.
So I guess my point is, the idea of losing privacy from that area because people are looking in, there's not a single window in the addition that
Well, now
is
there
where
is
the
because
trees.
I want to move it down.
Well, you're moving the window there, but right now there isn't. There isn't.
Privacy, can I clarify, Heather, is that when I look, and when other people like Mr. Owen's windows look at me, they can't see into my home. They can't see into my windows with the trees there.
But they can't see because they can't look out.
I guess my point is there's no windows where those trees are.
The point is, I'm looking at trees now, and
Look
I
at
think maybe I'm not stating it specifically enough to how you typically say it, but I'm looking at a wall instead of trees.
Well, that's it. You're gonna look at a wall versus.
What do you, I don't know, you call that view, I guess, so.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one couple of.
I'm gonna give you 1 minute.
Okay, that's all I need. There's just a couple of unanswered questions. The mechanicals, there's some suggestion that there are gonna be mechanicals put here. I just don't know where they're gonna be.
They're on the plan,
Where?
underneath the porch,
Is the radon pipe going up my side of the house?
where it is now.
No, there's going to be an addition where it is now, so I'd like to know where the radon pipe
It's
is.
on-
going.
it's
By the way,
it's
I'm
on the
addre-
plan.
I'm addressing the chair, not you, Mr. Lucas, right now.
It's not on
I'm
your
trying to
side of
speed
the
it
house.
along,
It's
it's on the plan.
It's on the back.
It's on the back side. It's not on your side.
Okay, so is the board inclined to close the public hearing and have a vote?
Yes.
Yes. Seems that way. Okay, so I'm gonna make a motion to close the public hearing. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, I'm gonna do a roll call in case there's a deal on this one, so, I'm a yes. Paula?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Okay, do we wanna have any, discussion amongst the board on this? Maybe have I think it's fair to
Is
have
this
a,
closed, did they accept moving the window? Did we get that little swap if it changes a concession, or did we leave?
well,
that?
I could
Doesn't sound like that's gonna make her
reopen it,
happy.
or we can condition it, but,
It doesn't seem like that changes her
It
feeling.
doesn't have to change, I mean,
Yeah.
you can put a window in the house that you have now, anytime you want. I know what you did, I know
Well,
what
see,
you're
I'm
saying,
just
but
moving
I
it
know,
down.
I know.
But, okay.
I guess,
If that doesn't change, if, you know,
Yeah.
once I get an emphatic yes, that's fine, I'm not gonna appeal, then I have to go overstepping my bounds.
Heather, you had some comments?
I guess my only question for you was your desire to seek town council, was that to try to, avoid an appeal for the petitioner?
My job is to make a record
Okay,
as the chair. I've given everybody an opportunity to speak, make their arguments.
okay, or just made it.
So I think I have,
Yeah, okay.
you know, my opinion, we got an opinion in the Puritan Road case. I've read that Peralta case.
Yeah, this is very cut and dry for me. I mean, so, yeah, I just wanted to know if that was at all
I wanted to make sure
rational,
everybody else
for
was
saving the
comfortable
petitioner somehow,
with,
whatnot.
the legal issue. So what typically we have done in the past is to have at least a straw poll, so that in case the petitioner, and give a petitioner the ability to withdraw a petition if it was gonna be in the negative. So I would ask if, you're not required to commit to it, but as a courtesy, if anyone was a no vote, to indicate that they would be a no vote on this petition. All right, hearing none. Is there anyone that wanted to make a motion on this petition?
I was gonna say, I don't know, anyone can.
All right, I'll make a motion on this one. Guess I'll ask Chris to write a draft. He writes a nice draft, I'll say, as does Ken.
Gee, thanks.
So, I am going to make a motion on petition 2128 for 17 Crossman Ave for a couple things. First, for a finding that, several findings. One, that the lot is non-conforming. Number two, that it's non-conforming for the side yard setback, for lot area, and that the proposed changes for the plan would result in no further increase to the non-conforming nature of the non-conforming structure.
Oh, I think it does. It
If it's
extends.
the parallel wall, that's the question under
I think it-
Peralta.
yeah, I think
Oh,
it
so you're saying
extends-
conform, I'm sorry. It's
It
a
intensifies
non-conform,
it
it
intensifies
intensifies,
the
you're right, right.
non-conformity.
So it's the second part of the
Right.
Peralta case. So the finding should be that there is a non-conforming change that's made to the non-conforming structure, and that there is a finding of no substantial detriment to the neighborhood by this increase to the pre-existing non-conforming nature of the structure. And to grant the relief, subject to condition that as many of the existing arborvitaes that can remain outside of the building area remain, to preserve those mature trees and privacy as much as can be preserved. And anything else in for a condition? That the project be built in accordance with the plans that have been substantially in compliance with the plans that have been provided. And I'm going to take a roll call, so do I have a second on that motion?
Second.
A second, is that Paula?
Yeah.
So I am a yes, Paula?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Okay, so you have your relief. I'll ask Chris to write a draft decision.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, yep. Okay, while they're getting up here. Yep.
Me too. Thank you.
When we did it, not that I'm gonna, because I can't get rid of my.
Just a couple of minutes if you want to come forward, Bill. Sorry for the late night.
For the NOI? Yes, of course.
How do you like the esoteric arguments about the building code going on?
If I'm going on a site visit on 60 CHERYL Road, I don't think I have to worry about my shoes. I'm sorry.
A lot of trouble with that. I've learned that a long time.
I think so. Take care, Ken.
Well, because if you look at the existing, what it has, and it's not conforming, but those are good questions for the petitioner.
No, you're totally fine. Nobody's gonna be offended. Especially if you're quick. Especially if you're.
Ask by the chairman to see if I'm getting the right ideas. How many guys get a bunch of late night now?
There's been a lot of late ones.
Yeah, that's going on in Salem.
Oh, really?
They were backed up for like 3 months. They couldn't get through their agendas, so they had 4 members that were in the last meeting before they got any new ones. So of course, the new agendas were getting all backed up because it's busy.
Yeah.
I can't imagine Salem.
Special meetings, that helped, and now they just decided they're not going to do more than a half a dozen members. They just can't get done.
Yeah.
I had 2 meetings in a row. It was Zoom.
Yeah.
You know, you'd be sitting in your slippers.
You're gonna fall asleep if you're too comfy in your home.
Was that tonight? Was that tonight? Was the Salem one tonight?
No, there's one tomorrow.
It's tomorrow night. That's the one I want to watch.
That's when you wanna watch it. What's going on in that one?
Is they're trying to build that weird house at the back of the other house next to Nathan's.
right.
I want to know if they get permission. I may be watching that tomorrow night.
On
You guys
Zoom,
ever
yeah.
done a doggy daycare or either one of those? It's riot. You know, all the people that.
Where do they want to do it?
Dogs and
Yeah.
the odors and,
Yeah.
you know,
That's a hard one to
it's
pass.
something.
Yeah.
It's entertaining at night. With one of my clients, Mr. Benoit.
Yeah.
I-
Me too.
Hi.
Usually when I see this guy, he's got 2 little boys hanging around him. It's like a moving storm. Oh, yeah, this is, Mark, you guys all get this list sent in today? Just
I
trying to
did.
Itemize the relief as I understood it.
Yep, I printed it out, but somebody,
Install or anything, but I just-
no, that was helpful.
there's so many iterations, you know.
I think I have it right here, hopefully. No, I don't, but I have it on my computer at least.
What was going on here tonight, Mark? I couldn't find a couple of places that were right.
Oh, No, it was the Honor Society.
National Honor Society had a meeting.
Induction thing for the seniors.
A lot of smart kids here in Swampscott, I guess. That must be it.
Why was my son?
That's a great night, it just surprised me.
Yeah.
It just kept going back and back.
Yeah, I had the same thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
We were supposed to start at 6. We had a second agenda tonight for this 40B we've had, but that ended up getting continued to June 13th.
I'll try and speak this as fast as I can, Mark, okay?
Sounds good.
Don't promise.
What's that?
Donde vas? Are you going to Spain?
Oh, no, I'm going to a wedding in Israel a week.
That's 7 hours?
This is the third time they've had this, this wedding. They've
Oh,
had for COVID. So this is like third time we've been booked to go, but
Oh,
the bride and groom are there already. It's my wife's best friend. And we're going the 2nd, the 11th. I didn't get to see my daughter in Spain because I was doing this trip. My wife went to Italy with the girls for 10 days and had a great time. Okay. All right, so now being after 7:30 PM, we get to petition 2126 for Pine Street Development LLC. Attorney Quinn, how are you this evening?
I'm very good, thank you, as you all are.
All right, so some revisions to the petition since the last time.
Yes, we're here in Chairman on the decision tonight. This is our modus operandi, I guess, with this project. We had to do the same thing with the planning board. Because again, it's a big project for this neighborhood. There were a lot of concerns expressed. Board members had a lot of input at the planning board and some here. And so we've tried to cut it back, cut it down, and make it look much more fitting for the neighborhood, which was one of the big takebacks I got from our last meeting with the zoning board, which was some people felt, regardless of other merits, that it just couldn't meet the criteria of the special permit to recognize and complement the architecture and style of the neighborhood dwelling. So we unleashed Mr. Pittman and finally asked him to exercise all his talents to meet those design concerns and at the same time do, of course, what the client would like to accomplish. And you know, Peter is on the Zoom here with us tonight. I really would like to let him do most of the talking if possible and then answer your questions, but I just would say I did submit to everybody, well, I submitted to you today, a list that just quickly summarizes that the present project is now 20 dwelling units rather than 22 or 34 or whatever we originally had. We still have the 30 indoor parking spaces on the first floor. We still retain a little over 1,000 square feet of retail on the first floor, as we were urged to do at the planning board to provide an amenity to the neighborhood. We're in the B1 district, and I've given you a list of what I believe at this point are the forms of relief we need. But I would say, generally speaking, talking after our last meeting with you, with Peter and the developers, we had to make a decision. The decision was redesign to try and meet the design concerns, or worry more than that about asking for a height variance. And we decided that we might need a height variance in any case, which we can discuss, but we weren't going to get approved by this board without making a major change in the design of the property. So that's what we've done. And you know, it was a lot of work for everybody involved, but we've got a good, interesting design to show you today and answer your questions and get your feedback. It's not final. It's another iteration of what we now would like to do. And we hope it's what will be approved, but there's always room to talk about more things. So with that, if you don't mind, can I just either answer any immediate questions or ask that you recognize Mr. Pittman to describe the new project as it's designed?
Sure. Why don't we go right ahead to Peter then?
Good evening, everyone. Can I share my screen?
Oh, yes, I started sharing it myself, just by reflex, but go for it.
As Bill pointed out, we did reduce the footprint slightly. We reduced the massing on the third floor, and we brought a more residential scale and proportion and detailing to the property overall. We are still keeping the roof deck, but it's been reduced down behind the parapet and would not be visible from the public way at any point. It's only about 2 feet above the parapet. We'll go over that in more detail further on. This is the landscape plan. I'm going to push back that. That'll be updated as part of if we go on with the elevation. The unit count has come down to 20 units. The mix is 16 one-bedrooms and 4 two-bedrooms. The Pine Street elevation reduced in mass across the front with both gables and shed dormers. The windows are what would be typically required by code and good design practice. We show this roof deck, but it would be substantially smaller. We're still having 2 large solar panel fields planned for the roof deck, so the actual area will be substantially smaller. The ramp configuration remains the same. It's now sheltered underneath this overhang. This is the entrance into the building, as it was before, and the side entrance into the retail space on the first floor. Trash will be contained inside the building, and the roof deck is again, would not be visible from the public way. Here are the heights from the lowest grade to the top of the roof plane. The flat roof is 36 feet 2 inches. We would be looking for relief. We are allowed 2 feet of parapet above that. Just as another point of reference, if we were going to take a look at the roof from the average of the foundation, it would be about 29 feet too. So very much in scale with proportions of a residential house. Zooming in, you would see that we've got board and batten on the first floor. The windows would be black. Simulated divided lights, so there'd be mullions on the outside, middle, inside. Hardy plank in composite trim details. There'd be some metal standing seam roofs on the sheds. and the rest of the roof would be architectural asphalt shingles. As we come around the corner, this is the Erie Street elevation. We'd have our glass garage door, our service door to the trash room, and then windows for the individual units. Again, standing seam metal roof on the sheds, architectural shingles beyond. These features, this is their elevator and staircase head houses. Again, those would be largely not visible from the public way. If you do, it's just a little glimpse off the corner. This is what would be next to the VFW. The VFW would pretty much cover all of this area, at least back to here, and certainly from the public way. This is the westerly lot line, which we have to keep open for natural ventilation. There would be a mesh screen across here, welded wire, powder-coated fabric or something similar to that, so that we can maximize the ventilation for the parking garage. We have to have 50% of the parking garage open for air circulation. So that's what we have for you tonight, and I'll turn it back over to council.
I think you did a great job with the changes from the last plan.
Looks great. Give me the third floor.
What's that?
The biggest question, yeah, we had last thing was the third floor, right?
Third floor, it's 2.5 stories. I mean, this looks
Well, just
great.
that first, well, yeah, because,
Right, I mean, well, let's talk about that for a
yeah,
minute.
let's get to that issue.
This is more than 2.5 stories, so we're calling it 3 stories. The question has been a legal question as to whether or not you have authority in special permit provisions under dimension to not only grant the 1.5-foot relief we need in feet, but the 3rd story. And I took the opportunity after we met to review the zoning decisions that were discussed here that night for the Concordia.
Yep.
And I think it's the White Court, or I'm not sure what the name of it is,
Yep.
the former Marion Court. And was actually kind of surprised to read in the Concordia decision, the board took the position that it had the authority to grant the 3rd story by special permit and did so. In the White Court decision, Attorney McCann had briefed that issue and decided to ask for alternative relief. He asked for 3rd story by special permit, and he asked for 3rd story by variance, and argued grounds for both. And the board recited both of those grounds, all of those grounds, and granted the special permit, specifically not specifying and stating they were not specifying the type of relief, whether it was a special permit or a variance, so you hedged your bets.
Yeah, I wrote that decision.
Yeah,
I
so,
think I wrote both of them, so.
so here's how I'm looking at it. We're gonna do the same thing. I certainly think, based on the Concordia decision and my argument before, that the language in the zoning dimensional table is obvious, that height includes stories, they're right together under that heading, that you have full authority under the special permit provision, legal authority, if you want to exercise it to grant a 3rd story by special permit. But I believe we have grounds for the variances that we may need in terms of the soil conditions of the property primarily. And I'm going to submit a new statement of grounds now that we know, if you like this, closer to what we're going to actually do. And I will make that argument for a variance on that issue as well. And you and the chairman can decide which way you want to look at it, but we'll be asking for relief of both kinds to allow us the 3rd story.
What about the 20-foot minimum rear yard setback?
There is no rear yard, it's 2 side yards.
Yeah.
I see a rear yard when I'm looking at it on the,
Well, I mean, I don't honestly know how you interpret that. Most cities, in our ordinance, and I believe in your ordinance, you have 2 fronts here, because you got to comply with the front on Erie, and you gotta comply with the front on,
You have a road on 3 sides,
yeah,
and then you have property on the back.
Two sides.
2 sides. We have the VFW on one side,
Yeah,
but we have Erie and, obviously, Pine on 2 sides, so those are 2 fronts for the purposes of calculating dimension. And in Salem, I don't mean you have to do what's done in Salem, but my experience is under those circumstances, they consider the other sides, and they impose the side setback on them, so.
Right, Andy, you had?
I mean, I
Yeah,
also
we've had
think
this issue.
when you're having no setbacks, or very minimal setbacks,
Yep.
I don't know what.
Well, again, remember.
there is,
some-
that needs to be kind of factored into whether or not you can get that 3rd story, because you're pushing to the outer limits of the lot as well, and then you're going up to the outer
I mean,
limits.
that sounds like.
So both things are happening simultaneously, I
Yep.
think.
Right, I mean, there are.
Bill,
there are-
Quinn, can I speak to that?
It's Peter.
He thought it's Peter on this.
He thought it was God.
In this case, he is.
No, what the building inspector was in this case. Before we drew our first line on any design drawings, we had a one-stop shop with the Public Works, Building Department, Planning Department, Fire Department, to make sure that all of the town departments were in agreement that we were dealing with 2 side yard setbacks and there was no rear setback in this case. So that was, again, before we drew our first line and invested all of the time and the money in this project, we got a clarification in that meeting with a concurrence from everyone in the meeting, and no one brought up that there was never any doubt that this was not 2 fronts and 2 sides and no rear setback. Counselor?
Well, I was at that meeting, so I have to agree.
Well, that's my memory too of how it's treated.
I mean, I can live with that.
But I mean, let's remember that in a B1, there is 0 requirement for front and 0 requirement for side. That's just recognition of what happens in a B1 and what's already there, like what we're replacing is
okay.
much different.
Assuming we like it, you know, like
Yeah.
yeah.
You have to consider what's
Yep,
happening
okay.
on the side.
Sorry?
I think we have to consider what's happening on the side. Unfortunately, I don't know. I was kind of just looking at the map. Who are the abutters on that side? Is it other people's backyards? Is it, what are the properties there?
VFW is on one side, and they have a big open parking lot adjacent to our property.
Yeah, I know the
and building
VFW,
is kind of-
yep.
And then the back.
Stacy Brook is
On Erie, there's people across the street.
Yes, like, this is the
Right,
property, right?
behind us is Erie, the Stacy Brook,
You know, that's
the Stacy Brook, which is town property, and then 20 feet away, the property line for the butters on, and a butter on Erie.
Right.
Here's the site plan.
Backyard, you know what I mean?
So here's Erie. This is our entrance into the parking garage. This is our interior trash storage. This is coming around the corner onto Pine Street. This is our main entrance in the front of the building. Our handicap ramp going up. The entrance to the retail space here. Back out. And then the abutters, this is the town of Swampscott, which is actually the VFW. And technically across the north side of the property here, this is actually Swampscott town land. So the city is the legal abutter on this side. There is a neighbor adjacent to that, but there is a town-owned.
How wide's that town-owned strip?
I believe it's 15 feet or 20 feet. I'm sorry, I don't have something right in front of me.
It's 15 feet.
15
Okay,
feet.
so you're getting 15 feet. Okay.
Yeah, and the house isn't on the boundary line either.
So
It's
the house, the backyard, then there's a backyard, then there's a house on the other street.
And I think it's worth just noting that on Erie, our building is set back about
That's a good look there.
12 or 14 feet
Where's
from
that?
Erie Street. That's
See what's
where
there.
We have some
Yes, so
utilities, some landscaping, and the sort of the ramp in and out of the parking garage.
No, that's a garage.
Right, Marissa put it up on the board, a good view.
Yeah,
Peter did, but thank you.
thank you.
I'll give you all the credit.
Oh, Peter did, he's got the screen.
All right.
So, one thing I wanted to ask about, because we talked about it a little bit the last meeting, about that commercial space. Because I don't think the commercial space works here, I know
Commercial space.
Andy and I
understand
both.
what the planning board said.
Yeah, the reason why we put in the commercial space, it was the direction that was provided by the planning board. We're not set in stone on the commercial space either, that's the only reason it's in there. You know, if we wanna go back residential, you know, we don't have any
So would you be able to put a residential unit there?
Yes.
Or you would be able to? That's just one thing I'm thinking, if you're coming back the next time, that maybe you have a plan ready that shows that as residential as well.
I just read.
Do you agree, Peter?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
They're asking us if we can eliminate the retail and add a unit on the first.
As an alternative, just.
As an alternative.
Yes, it's a reasonable alternative. It challenges us, just as we got conforming on the residential parking with 20 units, it'll bring us back up to 21 units. But that would be, I think the ownership team would be very willing to consider a dwelling unit there instead of retail space. But Alec, don't let me put words in your mouth.
No, you are correct.
I just read an article today that said that that the retail space on these mixed-use buildings is gonna sink the apartment buildings, because Salem's doing, like, look at Jefferson Park, where Monopoly was, Parker Brothers. It's been 20 years they haven't rented that space.
That's right on the
it's
first
just
floor of all
ridiculous.
those buildings.
Yeah, it's all vacant.
Yeah.
David Ock's been trying to rent it for
Right.
10 or 15 years.
Yeah.
And they
The old
the towns make them do
courthouse.
it, you know. There's no market here, and I would think the neighbors would rather see a non-commercial space than a commercial space that has no parking, there's no chance of being viable under any circumstances, et cetera, et cetera.
It helps us with the parking, because the retail, we haven't provided parking for the retail if we give one
I
and a
know,
half
it's an
units, so-
interesting
so
thing,
we're
you're saying
missing
you don't
6
need it,
spaces.
but in the reality of the use, that small apartment will have way less parking intensity than
Than the commercial
the
use.
commercial space that
I
you
just think it's
provide
better for the
parking.
neighborhood to not have the commercial space. It's a great concept, a great idea, and I give credit to the
I just
planning
think at
board.
that location, it doesn't.
That location, that's not the right location for
We
it.
can't even keep the businesses in Vinnon Square, how are we gonna keep them in?
Well, like I said, it's been a work in progress, and let's make some more progress.
Yeah.
We'll do that.
So that's
We'll
one,
figure out, maybe it'll affect again a little bit the relief we're asking for or something, but it shouldn't be much.
Maybe as a quid pro quo and all the winks and that, you have to have 2 low-income, moderate
Yep,
income
we got it
housing
right.
units.
No.
So
How
maybe
many do they have to have?
2, 1 for every 10.
10%.
1 for every 10, so
20
maybe you
is
make,
2.
maybe the quid pro quo is you make that commercial space
Right.
a third housing
Affordable.
unit. That generates a lot of good publicity, and you'll get more rent from the moderate income housing unit than you're ever gonna collect over a period of time
Yeah.
for the
vacant.
store that you're gonna pay commercial taxes on.
And your percentages of
Yep.
affordable go up dramatically just
Yep.
by adding one unit.
Right, well, and that's what we're looking to do, so I think that's a.
And how's the line of communication been with the abutters, all the neighbors?
It's going better. We listen to, you know, what they have to say, and we revise our design, and one of them are here tonight, and they'll speak. We came out a little aggressive with our first couple designs, and we came back and we listened to what they have to say. We added parking spots, we reduced the number of units, we reduced the height, we changed the aesthetics, and I think we're pretty close. We're getting closer.
Okay.
20 units, 30 spaces.
So, is there anything else that you wanted to share with us tonight? I think you're going in the right direction, is what I think. I would like to hear from any of the abutters that had comments, make sure you're getting all the comments that they might have.
Absolutely.
If anyone felt like they needed to or wanted to share any comments with the petitioner at this public hearing, you're free to reach out to the petitioner outside of the public hearing. But if you wanted to make sure your views were expressed at this point in time, now's a good time to do that. So I see there are a couple of hands raised, 3 hands raised. So Marissa, can you,
Yes. Cindy Cavallaro.
okay, Ms. Cavallaro?
Yes, Mr. Chairman and the board, it's been a very late night. I have to commend, they're beautiful, they really are. But you cannot compare Marion Court, 3 stories, wanting a quid pro quo for affordable housing, low income, whatever, to go up higher. It's 2 separate areas. Marion Court is wide open, accordion, whatever you want to call it, open space. This is a very dense area. So I think you asking to go any higher is going to cause you a lot more problems in the long run. It looks beautiful. It really does. I'm really impressed with how well that you're working with the neighborhood. I live on Pine Street. I'm a town meeting member. I was totally against this in the beginning, and I'm starting to lean a little more towards it, just because of the way that you've been working with us and the abutters who've been contacting me to speak for some of them. But some of the concerns we still have is Stacy Brook, the flooding, the demolition, the trucks, is there existing asbestos, all these things that we haven't heard anything about in terms of reports. And maybe I'm a little ahead of the game, but going up any higher, no. I think that this looks good just the way that it is.
Can I interrupt you, please, and say, they're not asking to go up in terms of it, they're just asking to cover more of the 3rd floor. It's not going up. That's the height that you see. What they've done is they've inserted dormers and reduced some of the square footage, so they don't have a full 3 floors. They're using like 80% of it, when you can only use 50% of it. They're not going up. They're just spending.
Would it be any
plus.
higher than
And
what you see right
is
there?
what they're proposing right now. That's what you're getting.
Okay, well, getting rid of the commercial is definitely a plus because of the parking, but putting in none of the residential, would you be able to have enough allotted parking for those people that would be moving in?
So would it be a studio in that one unit?
Most likely, it's only about 1,000 square feet. So.
Yeah, so it would be a studio unit, and they would have to work to,
Studio, that's like a 1 bedroom.
right, 1 bedroom. And
No, parking spot. You can
how
put
many
those
parking
spot and
spots do you
still
have?
We have 30 parking spots, but the parking spots would become tandem if we were to, add.
And what about visitor parking? I mean, people want to have people over for holidays, for dinner parties, whatnot,
They've got 30 spots for 20 units,
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, Paul.
They've got 30 spots for 20 units.
In what ostensibly
Right, they have a pretty good parking
transit-oriented
ratio.
project.
And 16 of the units are 1 bedrooms.
Yeah.
Right, and it's a
Well,
transit-oriented.
come a long way. They look a lot better than they did, that's
Thank
for
you.
sure.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, Ms. Cavallaro. So there were a couple of other hands raised.
I have Betty Johnson.
Okay, if I could have an address would be great, too. Betty?
My address is 12 and 14 Erie Street. I know that they say that I don't abut the property, but they do abut between Stacy Brook and the building. I'm the only house that's next to this, and there seems to be a discrepancy about the width of Stacy Brook, because if we go with the dimensions they're using, my garage that's been there since 1925 is on city property. Now, I've been asking all along how many trees they're gonna cut down. I've never got an answer. I'm concerned about the garage vents all venting into my yard. I understand they need to have 50% vent, but they could have a mesh garage door. On their plans, they show a 4-foot chain link fence between that garage and my yard. I've been asking if they could put a 6-foot privacy fence so we don't see the headlights, we don't get all the fumes. We're losing all our privacy. I laughed about the woman in the last one. She said she's got 1 window she's complaining about. I'm gonna have 40 or 50 windows looking down into my yard.
Is the fence a possibility?
Absolutely.
And then the one other thing that I'm concerned about is on the original drawings, the roof deck was 1,920 square feet. The new drawing showed as being 6,800 square feet. Now, he said that's not finalized, but what is the final gonna be?
I'll ask the petitioner if they can answer any of those questions.
I have to ask the architect, I don't know.
So the chain link fence is an existing fence, and I don't think that, and I'll defer to Alec on this. Alec, are you willing to do a 6-foot privacy fence along that line?
Yes, I think that'd be good for everyone, the neighbors.
Just the headlights.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, so
And the
we
venting,
agreed
she's got the
to
venting
get
wall.
rid of the
There's
chain
too
link
much on it.
fence, and get rid of the chain link, and we would provide a 6-foot privacy fence. That 6-foot privacy fence would also allow for the required ventilation by code, but also provide a light screen and again, the privacy for the neighbor. This is her garage as surveyed from tax maps, and can actually go on their property and verify it, but based upon tax maps, I believe this is where the civil engineer was able to locate her garage. In terms of trees, all of the trees on our property will have to be removed. We'll be excavating. We did talk to Gino Prester in the Public Works Department about managing and dealing with construction near Stacy Brook and all of the drainage issues. As the plans were developed thus far, have been in compliance and coordination with the DPW. The civil engineer obviously is at has to comply with all of the engineering standards and practices. And there has been quite a bit of discussion in the planning board phase, and you can see right here that all of the drainage generated by our building is going to be contained on our site through this subsurface Cultec system.
Yeah, I'm not questioning the drainage right now. I've been maintaining those trees for 26 years because of that battle back and forth that the city says they're not their trees. Now all of a sudden they are city trees, and I've been paying to maintain them. I want to go back to the fence. When you say a fence, will you do a PVC fence and not a stockade fence?
I'm sure the ownership team would run whatever type of fence you would like to have. If you wanted a 6-foot PVC and that was good with zoning and planning, then I think that would be a perfectly reasonable request.
Okay, and another request I had was on the lights on the sidewalk on our side of the building. We've asked if they can be motion detectors so the LED lights aren't on all night, shining in our bedrooms. Is that something you'll do?
Yeah, so we'll I don't know if motion detectors would be the best solution. What we do is we will have to work with the lighting design in code to comply with what's called dark sky standards, which means the building code requires that we have 1 or 2 foot candles along an egress path, which is fairly dim lighting. That's like dim parts of a parking lot. So there would be dim lighting along there. It would be hooded. And we could even look at options of maybe the lighting being in the fence posts, so they reflect back on the walkway and not on the building. So,
well, if they're hooded, that's fine. It just has to. We don't want them shining in the house all night.
Absolutely, that's more than reasonable.
Now I have one more thing that has nothing to do with this building. Yep. As most of you are aware, with planning meetings, we had a problem in the winter with the snow being plowed and dumped on the sidewalks. We were told the property manager would take care of it. They didn't. Every storm they kept doing it. Now we're having a problem that someone's dumping trash on this lot. There was a whole bunch of trash. It went away. Now for at least 3 weeks there's been chairs and sofa and all kinds of stuff tucked in the corner by my yard. Nobody's checking the property. Nobody's making sure. I know there was security cameras in it when Charlie was there. But somebody's got to do something to stop this dumping.
We own the property.
On the property, in the corner by the garage doors on Erie Street.
Can I ask a tree question? The trees that you're concerned about, are they on the property or are they on that 15-foot space between your property and
I think most of them are on that strip between.
So those, you're not touching those trees because those are town trees. So the,
Right.
the 15 feet between the two properties, none of those trees could be touched without permission
Right.
from the town.
Right.
Okay.
So you still
I mean,
have some
we're
trees.
losing so much privacy, I would like to at least keep the trees.
Yeah, he can't touch them.
You can't touch them, they're not his
Unless-
property.
Unless they hang over.
Unless they hang over your property, you're right.
Yeah. No, we don't
Okay.
plan on it either.
Okay, I thought there was one last hand.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Betty.
I do have a couple more hands, yeah.
Okay.
I have a Cesar.
Hi, Cesar Mejia, 27 Pine Street.
Hi.
I just want to reiterate a lot of the things that my other neighbors said that I'm concerned about, from parking, the increased noise levels, but I also want to add the increased shade that it's going to possibly have on my house, especially in the evening and winter time. That's a big concern for me because my house in the winter obviously doesn't get much sunlight at all. Another thing is traffic. Seeing that another property is going to be built not too far from here. And I know that a lot of those cars are going to cut through Pine Street to get to that area. So that's going to be a huge impact with 20 units across the street now. And also the construction noise. Our house, just having a large truck driving by shakes. So I can't imagine them digging what it's going to be like. I want to see what their plan is to mitigate that.
Right. I would expect there would be a complete construction management plan that would be a condition. Ideally like to see what their plan is. Maybe they could submit that to us at the next meeting. Yeah, go
And
ahead.
I'd ask this question to the abutters. If this 20-unit apartment building was sitting here today, and these petitioners were coming in here to tear the 20-unit apartment building down and build a concrete block industrial building that can be used by a myriad of uses, would you think that, I mean, we had the same thing when we were talking about the middle school in condos, where they're thinking, well, this is new, but you're not putting it in the context of what you have. We're not putting this, they're not petitioning to put this in on 20 acres of virgin farmland. You have an existing building that can be used, it's got traffic, that's so incongruous for the neighborhood, it's unbelievable. This is bringing it much closer. I'd like, you know, you should think about that in the context, especially the way these guys have been.
Right, we had a lot of hearings about the prior use of the
Right,
existing
I mean,
building.
We're here all the time because of all the
crazy.
noise from the,
Right.
from the car repair.
Right, I've done site visits there.
I mean, 20 apartments is a fraction of the
Right,
traffic.
right, with the
that
cars that
industrial
we
building
would hear about the
would
cars running, racing the engines and being towed in.
We also have a traffic study that we submitted that reflects what you're saying.
Yeah. So, Marissa, was there another hand?
Yes, Marcia Dalton.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Marcia Dalton. I live at 37 Pine Street, which is kind of kitty corner to where the proposed building is going to be. I just have a couple of questions. It wasn't really made clear whether these are going to be condominiums or apartments, if the owner could answer that. And then the other concern I have is about the trash. I know it's contained inside, but it was mentioned that it would be taken out 3 times a week. And is it just going to sit there, or is somebody, a private contractor, going to come? And of course, I agree with everyone about the traffic and the parking. And thank you for listening to me. I know it's late. Good night.
Thank you. So I'll ask the petitioner.
Private trash, right?
I mean, my understanding is, we've talked about this, the condo apartment decision hasn't been made, the final project hasn't even been designed yet to completion. It'll depend on the market, but whatever, there'll be 3 affordable units for sale or 3 affordable units for rent. And you know, what we're designing here with all these 1-bedroom units is basically workplace type housing, workforce housing. We got an elevator in a 3-story building, so it's gonna be a great place and a great neighborhood for older people who wanna settle and not have to move as they go older. So, I mean, this is, you got your affordable, you got your white court, $2, $3, $4 million condominiums that rich people are gonna live in, and it's not gonna help in the housing in this community at all. And this is sort of the middle of the road. It's workforce, working people type housing. So the prices and the rents and the design will reflect that, and we think it'll fit a really good niche for needed housing in the community. So
Right,
that's.
a lot of commuters on the commuter rail, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Trash, what's the story with the trash? It's not gonna sit outside except the day it's picked up, right? We have indoor trash storage.
Correct.
What, do they go into the building to pick it up, or you're not sure of that yet?
No, they'll pull it out, they'll dump it right in the truck, and then they'll put the barrels right back, and then the truck will take off.
Okay.
Okay,
It's private,
all right, so,
Wind waste,
I think, what was the question?
it's a private contract.
Yeah, private contractor.
Yeah.
wind waste, or.
So what I think we should do is look to continue to the June 21st meeting, is that
Yeah.
enough time? Oh, I'm sorry. Absolutely, been sitting here patiently all night.
Poor people.
How you doing? Steve Gadman, 11 Pine Street, directly across from the building. First, this design, way better than the first. Really like this, compared to what is there. You know the building. Our concerns, one is the store. I was glad to hear you bring that up because we don't want the store there with all the traffic and stuff. So I know I'm not going to go on with that because we've already suggested not having that. Another concern is the rooftop deck as far as privacy goes. In the neighborhood, being up that high, being able to look down into the yard, over into the windows, we're really concerned about that. I don't know any other building in town that has a rooftop deck. We are a town, not a city. I don't know which route the town wants to go, but I think that I'd really like to see that rooftop not be there, especially because of privacy with everybody. About the sunlight, we're concerned about sunlight that was mentioned by one of our neighbors because that side of the street is where our house gets most of the sun, and especially during the winters. Our winters are the longest. Keeping the snow melting off the houses and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Was there any type of sun study done yet?
Not at this point.
Well, the shadow study could show what the
Yeah.
existing is
Yeah.
compared to what's here now, because I know there's a big concrete block building there occupying much of the site.
Right, we'll gear down on that and do some studies, both in terms of the visibility to and from the roof deck.
Can we drill down on the size of
The roof
deck?
deck,
From the
yeah.
building. Remember,
Yeah.
it's
Limit the
For next
size of the
time.
deck,
smaller.
and then ask Peter, the question
You're not
is,
gonna
if
see
you're
all
in the
of it.
center of the
Yeah.
roof deck,
In your house.
so you're not at
All the
the
houses are
edges,
30-something
will you not
feet
even
tall.
be able to look over or look up?
And this is 32 feet,
Yeah.
6 inches to the top, so.
I think we agree that we need more clarification on where the
Yeah.
roof deck is and
Yeah.
that
No
sort of stuff,
problem.
so that's
No
gonna
problem.
happen.
And it was mentioned about the trash pickup, that it's going to be a few times a week that it's being picked up, is that correct?
We haven't decided how many times a week, but if we want to add more barrels, it'll be less times a week, or we do less barrels and more times a week, so it's one or the other. So you can have a truck there for, 10 minutes with 2 barrels, or you're gonna have a truck there for 30 minutes with 10 barrels. But it'll be less times a week. So you could have it one way or the other, but we have to get rid of the trash.
But no,
It's not gonna sit on the sidewalk.
No, the truck will be there, we'll dump it, we'll put it back, they'll bring it back in, and it's not
And
gonna
you
sit
said
in
they
the
would do it at 5 AM.
No.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
You can condition the traffic to trash pickup, not be
Yeah,
full center.
again,
Yeah, think about it, it's gonna be more often, with less amount of time the truck's sitting there.
All right, thank you, everybody. for
Thank
okay,
you.
so I'm gonna ask you to agree to sign a continuance, not tonight, but you can do it tomorrow for the 21st of June.
Yes,
So we're gonna come back here the 21st of June, 7 PM. It'll be hybrid again, hopefully hybrid, and rather than just all Zoom, but it'll be posted,
Yeah,
okay?
and I mean, our intention is to seek a decision that night, but let's see how the
Well, I'd say work
redesigning
real hard
goes.
with the neighbors in the interim would be what I would say, and
Get us stuff early so we can think about
You had to avoid that.
Yes.
We voted on the one before this one, so that one's done.
I just want to make one comment. I walked in here and I saw my Salem Assistant Building
I know,
Commissioner and friend Steve here.
Yeah.
And I thought he was probably a neighbor, right? Maybe of one of these projects or something. So I asked him to talk to me, and I found out he's your new building inspector.
Yes.
You got a good one.
Oh, great.
You've been great.
All right.
Yay, Steve.
We're hoping he stays after.
He seems happy about the thing.
Okay. Council.
All right.
I just need a motion to adjourn, Mark.
Motion to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Enthusiastic.